and welcome to the Fallout Feed special crossover 70s style Scooby-Doo spectacular with MindFog.
Oh, no, Reggie. No.
Oh, gee. Okay, we're not going to get into impressions. Aaron, hi, Aaron. Welcome to the show tonight.
Hey, thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
It's been like a year in the making. It's so cool to have Aaron on the show.
Pat is with us tonight, too. How's it going, Pat?
Doing great, Andrew.
Wonderful.
Welcome, Aaron.
It's been we're so scattered here. So exciting to get Aaron on. We've been talking up Aaron's show for at least a year now, and we've been interacting with him online for a long time. But a little Aaron. Little background is doing his awesome show MindFog, which is a Fallout 4 diary style presentation of a podcast, and he is spoiler free. So everyone in the YouTube, chill your jets. People don't write in emails to him or anything spoiling. You got to be cool about this, all right? So he's not up to date with the show. So Pat and I actually have to be very careful too about stepping on landmines about not getting ahead of whatever he is seeing. But we'll also help him maybe shape a little bit direction of where the show might be able to go. So we're super excited to have Aaron on tonight. We're going to help give a little exposure to his show, and hopefully we can get a little cross promotion going on between our two shows. We've been wanting to have him on for a very long time, and this is very exciting. Aaron, again, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very excited to be here. It's very, very cool. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the help that you guys have given me and in sort of helping sort of shape where this story has been going. So I really appreciate that too. So thank you.
Yeah. Very welcome. It's like listening to your show is kind of, it's almost like playing the game again for the first time, which is really nice experience after a couple years and the DLC and everything else. It's nice to kind of go back and remember those first that first encounter with Nick Valentine or the first time you see the Pridwin flying over the Commonwealth. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was trying to sort of experience it, sort of fresh and bit by bit. So, because I know that a lot of these things are sort of common experiences that everybody goes through, and I thought it would be kind of neat to have sort of a documentation of that. And I had sort of intended to have a little bit more of the humorous side of things that happen, like glitches in the game or things like that everybody's experienced. But Fallout 4 seems to be, I know there were some glitches at the beginning, but there have been a lot less of those, I guess maybe because I'm playing the game a little later. There've been a lot fewer of those than I thought there would be. So that's one thing I sort of haven't been able to incorporate into the.
That's kind of interesting. How were you thinking you were going to incorporate, like, say there was a graphics glitch, you walk up into a cell and the ground covering is disappeared?
Yeah, well, it was more issues like
that?
I think I had talked to Michael at the beginning about some of the things like there were Brahmin on the roof he experienced once, and weird things like that sort of people tend to run into. It seemed to me it happened more in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, which is originally what I was going to start. I was going to start with New Vegas, and then Fallout 4 was announced, so I decided to wait and do it on Fallout 4.
So this was actually in the plans. Like, you were going to do the show already, but you were going to do it with New Vegas, and then
right.
And probably 2014 or so. Fallout 4 was announced, and then you decided to put a hold.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was at my old job, so it had to be 2014, and I forget what made me think of it, but I just sort of had this. I was trying to figure out like a writing project that I could work on, and I was thinking, well, maybe if I did a diary, and it was originally just going to be a writing project, and then I don't remember why I decided to start doing it. I think I decided, well, I'll read the audio because some other people were doing diaries when I went to look into it. So I wanted to do something a little different than what they were doing. So I thought, well, I'll just read it. And then I thought, well, nobody's going to sit here and just listen to me read my diary. So I thought maybe if I put some music and some of the sound effects to it, that that it would be a little bit more entertaining.
Speaking of the music, where do you draw that from?
That's all from extracted from the game.
So you have, I'm not sure what your longest episode is. I would say in the 20.
Yeah, I think that's about the average. I think I have one that's close to a half an hour, but they've been running about 20 minutes. Yeah.
So, but they sound so fluid and continuous. Do you just basically do you have like a file, like a half an hour sound file that you're?
No.
How do you weave in all this ambiance, background noise, the game itself, the audio?
I have, when I play the game, I just have the music off, and so as I go through the game, you know, I'm recording the sound effect. I basically take a video of the game as I'm going, in, you know, the NVIDIA recording tool or whatever, and then I will go back after I record a section of, you know, my playthrough. I'll go back and maybe take like maybe a couple hours of ambient audio, and mix that, and I'll also take, and then I will turn down all the ambient audio, and I will just have the music track. And usually there's, I think the cool thing about Fallout 4 is, I don't know if anybody who's sort of familiar with the the extraction tools, and when you look at the actual background music, it's structured so that some of it is just straight music, and I end up cutting some of those, and so I have a folder of maybe 20 different music files, and I actually have to go back and add some more because I'm in areas of the Commonwealth now that I haven't visited to just get music for, and I think there's probably areas that have new music that I haven't used yet, so I do have to go and sort of add some more to that. But what's weird is this sort of ambient audio that repeats. There's some sort of trigger, maybe you know this, there's some sort of trigger in the software, in the game, that adds texture to these ambient music little flourishes. So if you just extract the ambient music in certain parts using the extraction tools, it will be very plain, it'll be very bare, and it may just be like, you know, some flute noises or things like that, and all the other flourishes, it's almost like there's, I don't know if it's random or if they depending on what's going on, there are certain other sounds that they inject, but the only way I can seem to get those is if I'm actually standing somewhere in the game and just record just the music, like the sort of background music. You can't get those by extracting the files. So I thought that was kind of interesting, just how Bethesda structured the music in the game.
That's really.
I'm sorry, to answer the question, I'm being very long-winded about it. I usually edit the have certain music files and sort of go in and out of them depending on fade in and out depending on what's going on in the story.
And you also record the. Let's see. I'm trying to decipher how you will do the spoken audio as well from characters. That must mean you have at least 3 layers going, because your music is so continuous and fluid. So that must mean you also have to rip the audio from the characters separately and do that on a separate track as well, than your narration as well.
Yeah, I can have up to like 10 tracks going at the same time, but not all, usually not all playing at once. But I'll have a narration track, I have a music track, I have a ambient noise like wind or something like that. Then I have the character track. So
how about ammunition and gunfire and stuff? Is that just in the wind, or will gunfire get its own separate track as well?
That's usually part of just the overall audio that I record when I go through. I don't usually, well, I do extract some of that separately. It's tough because it has definitely changed how I play the game. When I play the game, I try not to have too many things going on at the same time. Sometimes there's, you'll be talking to a character and some other character's talking, and when I'm actually playing now, I have to be sort of very conscious that there isn't too much going on at one time, because I know later I'm going to want to sort of separate whatever it is that I'm playing.
Good.
The ammunition from whatever else is going on.
Great. Hey, Pat, do you have a question for Aaron?
Oh, that definitely covered a couple of things I was really interested in. So how long does it take? So we're talking about process here, so maybe we talk a little bit more about that before we jump into maybe the creative side. So how long? So you do a 20-25 minute podcast. How many hours of content are you creating to cut that together, and how long does it take you to put it together? Man, it's clearly a labor of love. The quality is just amazing, the different layers and everything else. So how long does it take you to pull all this together to create one show based on your raw game and audio footage?
I think probably I usually write the episode. I'll usually take an hour, maybe 2 hours of gameplay, and try and condense it for an episode, and then cut certain things out. So the writing probably takes, I'm going to say, a couple nights. So maybe 10 hours on the writing, maybe a little bit more. And then I usually go back and I usually leave it for a couple days and then go back and edit it. And I still end up finding stuff that I wish I hadn't done or wish I could have changed. And then the actual putting everything together and extracting all the audio and everything, I would say is another couple nights. So these 3 months that are going by between episodes now, I'm feeling very guilty about, because it definitely doesn't take that long to do it. But
and so I'll ask a question that comes up a lot across people in the Facebook group and other places. I know you can't see because you're being spoiler free, but what software do you use to capture your? Now, are you capturing audio only, or are you capturing video as well?
I do the video just because it's easier, just to use that. And NVIDIA has that great, I forget what they call it. It's like
shadow play.
Yes. So they have that recording tool. So I usually record it, and then I use VLC, VideoLAN, to extract the audio from it. And then I have I was putting together the YouTube with Camtasia with using static screenshots, but it just there weren't enough people looking at that, and it got too much. It just started taking too much time. And after that, I just use Adobe Audition to stitch everything together.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I use Audition for my New Vegas Let's Play, but not nearly. It's mostly just stitching things together. I mean, I happen to have the Adobe tools for other purposes, for photography and stuff. So I have the tools, but
it's a great tool, isn't it? I mean,
no, it is. It's I barely scratch. It's just I'm the same way with Photoshop. I mean, I have it because every now and then there's something I want to do that just needs that. But for me, Audition's overkill. But I know Victor in the Facebook group who's has been on this show and many of the other ASA shows. I think he typically talks about shadow play. I've had better luck with OBS. I find OBS, it definitely is more complicated to set up, but it's a little more configurable. And so I find I think if you just want to jump online and get a Twitch stream going or record some video, I think shadow play is great. But I found that OBS is a little more configurable especially for my microphone setup, because Andrew, you were talking right before you jumped on the show about getting your AC noise turned down at your place, and I have to do this same thing because I record in my basement, and so the HVAC can be really loud, so I have to have a microphone noise gauge, and I have to do a little bit of fiddling, and I find OBS to be nice from that point of view, but it's definitely finicky. I know there's a lot of folks on the Facebook group that have posted having issues with OBS.
Is that a live streaming thing, or
it'll do both? You can use it to stream to Twitch or YouTube, or you can use it to record local video. It's free. I think it's free. It's either free or very, very inexpensive, and it's regularly updated, and seems like it. Like you can do different scenes and you can capture a window, you can capture a monitor. It's just very, very flexible. It seems like I think there's other tools that some of the really sophisticated Twitch streamers use, but I think OBS is fairly cool.
I may switch to that then, because the NVIDIA has, the shadow play, it was really good for a while. It was solid. I never had any issues with it. And then just recently when I was playing, I thought I was going to have to wait until they updated their software because I couldn't get it to start for some reason. And it turned out it looks like they have disabled the ability to just flat record the screen before you start. You have to start the game, then start the shadow play. I think it's probably because they don't want you capturing anything else other than gameplay. But it took me a long time to find that out, and there was nowhere that I could find online that had it. People were just like, when I hit Alt F9, nothing's coming up, and everything's mapped correctly, and Windows has permission to do it. But I found out that if I actually start the game first, then it's fine. So, but it's kind of finicky because sometimes I'm not just recording what I'm playing, or I'll shut it down. If you shut the game down and before you forget to stop the video will just keep recording and eat up, and I don't know how big your hard drive is, but I have a pretty small SSD that I use for my gaming, and it'll eat that up pretty fast. And next thing I know, my computer's not working. I'm like, what the heck happened? And that's because the video's still recording.
Well, I feel like we've done a pretty good description of the pieces so far that go into putting together an episode here. Well, I figure we should also experience a little bit of the fruits of that labor. So here is a clip that we're going to hear from MindFog. This is when the character, and you'll have to remind us of your character's name. Samuel. Say it again.
Samuel. Yeah, I don't think I ever actually used the name in the.
No, you do in the description of the show, but the character never says his own name,
right?
As far as I know. So this is Samuel finding a holotape from Nora. So let's go ahead and take a listen to MindFog. All right, I'm going to make this timestamp. Aaron, will you do me a favor? We're having a little bit of an audio crackle. Will you please sign out and click that link again, sign back in?
Sure.
And if it doesn't go away, I will have to click off and sign back in to see if that makes it go away.
Okay, I'm leaving now.
Yep. Hello, live YouTube.
If that doesn't, if Aaron signing off doesn't correct it, are you still hearing it?
I did for a second when you were talking there, I think.
Well, see, I hear a crackle, but I thought it was just my headphone cord picking up interference. But maybe it's.
I hear something too a little bit. Aaron, can you speak for a second?
Yeah. Hello.
That sounds pretty clear to me now. Hey, Pat, was it coming in on yours?
I did not. I'm not hearing crackle from either of you guys now.
I'm not hearing it now. All right, so let me timestamp that, and then we're going to go right into the sound clip at 18:35.
I thought about Nora, her cryogenic chamber a few hallways and doors away. And then I remembered I still had that holotape Codsworth had given me the first day I went back to Sanctuary Hills. I hadn't been ready to hear Nora's voice again, but now seemed a good time to listen to it. I was alone. Well, except for Dogmeat, who was at my feet, sprawled out on the floor, apparently waiting to see what I was going to do next. I popped the holotape in the terminal. Sean's baby cooing noises echoed off the cold concrete and steel walls. I put my head in my hands. No, I was not ready for this. But I continued to listen. Nora's voice. It had been tough, but we'd get through it. I was a good father. We'd make it work. She loved me. They loved me.
But we're going to anyway.
More of Sean's precious cooing.
Bye, honey.
Then the tape stopped. I completely lost it. I stood up and screamed and smashed the terminal off the desk, causing Dogmeat to start barking at the heap of busted electronics.
And that is just sort of like an example of incorporating the whole audio from the game, the background, the Pip-Boy bringing up crashing down. How'd you do the crashing down? That doesn't sound like there's no scene in the game where you're tearing a computer off of a desk.
That sounded like the psycho drug scream from the character.
That's exactly what. Yes,
job.
it's the psycho drug scream. I'm not sure. This was almost 2 years ago. I'm not sure what the crash was, but the static. It was a combination of sounds. The crash and that static electronic sound was actually, I think that's from New Vegas, like a monitor crash. I think that's the only sound I've used that isn't from Fallout in the whole 22 episodes or whatever I have.
Oh, that's great. So yes, I enjoyed that clip very much, and we actually have a bunch of clips to go through, so we can listen to more, or if you had more questions, Pat.
Well, I have a couple, but maybe let's do another clip or two, because I think maybe Andrew, I didn't get a chance to listen to what clips you picked out, but
well, here's one that I picked out because I specifically picked this one out because I wanted to know how much you are writing, Aaron. This segment, I don't remember anything from the game. That's one thing that I have trouble with in the Fallouts, because I'm a big fast traveler and I like to rush through stuff. Like I'm impatient for some reason. Yeah, you are the exact opposite with this game. You're the most patient person on earth. But you experience a lot of things, and you really slowly go through them and relish in each situation. So there's certain things that are happening to your character that I'm thinking, did I rush past this, or is Aaron writing this scenario and I just it's not in the game, Andrew, or did I just rush past this? So here is an example. I'm pretty sure that this was not in the game, because I would shit my pants if I missed it. But here, let's take a listen to the Devil Dream.
November 3rd, 2287. I had the strangest dream last night. There has to be some message in it, but I'll be damned if I can figure out what it is. I was in my own house at Sanctuary Hills. It was before the war, but Nora and Sean were missing. I was in the kitchen cleaning up some dishes after my morning coffee, and I happened to look out the back window. The entire backyard had been torn up. There were muddy tracks in the grass, like some monster truck had done donuts in it after a hard rain, utterly destroying the lawn and scattering lawn furniture all over. I stood there in stunned silence, surveying the scene, when I heard a voice behind me say, "Hey." I jumped, and standing there was a young woman, maybe mid-20s, brunette, tough-looking, in military garb. She walked up to the window, put her hands on the sill, leaned in, and said quietly, "The devil did this. You're going to have to go talk to him. I think he needs something from you," she continued. "Needs something from me," I answered. "Why would he need something from me? What did I do to him? Why would he want anything to do with me at all? I don't even believe in him," I said. She turned to face me. "He's up at the vault," she countered softly. "Go see him." I considered, then decided to go see what the devil wanted. I took the footpath from Sanctuary Hills up to the vault, and when I arrived, the devil was sitting on the metal stairs leading into the vault elevator control trailer. I walked right up to him and said, "Look, I don't know why you destroyed my yard or what I did to..." And he cut me off. "I need you to do something for me," he said. "Something for you? How is it you need me to do something for you?" "You're going to have to fight for your son," he said. "You're going to have to go to a place called Sparkle. When I go, I have to wear special armor. That's how dangerous it is." "What is Sparkle?" I asked. "Sparkle is not a place, but you will know when you've arrived." With that, the devil stood up and walked over to the Vault 111 lift and waved at me as it started to descend. The lift made the loudest rumbling noise I had ever heard it make before. Suddenly, the air became thick and heavy, and I was having a hard time getting enough of it in my lungs. I gasped for breath, hands to my throat, and suddenly I was awake in my own bed in our group house at Sanctuary Hills.
That's a very nice little segment. I know when we were speaking aside, Aaron, that you said you don't enjoy the earlier episodes as much because your narration style has changed so much throughout the the duration of the show. But this is still in the first 10 episodes or so, I believe, of the show, and that is a damn poignant little piece of poetry.
Thank you.
There.
Thanks.
Tell me about this.
Well, that I was sort of at the beginning when I was doing the first. I think I was talking more about the first few episodes that I was more uncomfortable with, and it's interesting because you picked these clips out, and I listened to a few of them last night, sort of in prep for the show. I didn't listen to that one. I didn't know that was one that you picked, and the last one I didn't know. I think it was the last one. Didn't know that you had picked that one either, but. It's interesting because it's interesting for me hearing these because I think I acted these a lot more than I do now. And that's something that I think probably I missed and I should pay more attention to when I do these because I tend to sort of read them more now. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. It's interesting hearing these again. That one in particular was part of a real dream that I had, and that I sort of, when I was writing more every 3 weeks or every 4 weeks, I was really, really more into this project. And I was going on a lot of faith that if I sort of, this project was never meant to be lore accurate in the first place. I was going to try and be as lore accurate as I could, but I sort of reserved the right to sort of add things that didn't necessarily. I wanted them to sort of fit in the Fallout universe if I could sort of make them fit, but I was going to take some liberties, and this was probably the biggest liberty that I took in the whole series so far. And I think at the time my thinking was, I am going to put some of my own stuff in here, and I'm going to take a risk and just kind of I'm going to trust that whatever sort of I'm embedding myself into by absorbing all of this, the Bethesda story, that my subconscious is going to fit whatever it needs to in here, and I'm going to sort of go on trust that this is all going to lead somewhere. And if it doesn't, then it's not a big deal. This whole project was supposed to be sort of just more of a playground for me, and I think probably I've tried to take it too seriously these last few episodes, and it's become more like when I play now, I know I have work to do. Like if I can't just sit and play the game for an hour or two, because I'm like, every bit of playing I do is accompanied by a certain amount of work. So it's nice to have these reminders that this was sort of more of an artistic project than work. And, you know, I think this is good that hopefully I'm going to sort of get back into that and remember some of what I was doing. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Now, that's something I've discussed with other podcasters who do video game centric shows. We've always commented to each other how just having a show about a video game will alter drastically how you play a video game.
So it's even sort of a shared experience then.
Yeah, that's nice. Pat, I feel like I'm stealing all the show. If you have anything. I'm just sitting here listening. It's fascinating just hearing about the process a little bit. Actually, why don't we? Well, Andrew, Aaron said he had maybe a couple of questions.
We've corresponded with Aaron. We've corresponded with you a little bit. We tried to give you a couple. You had a couple of questions a while back about if I remember right, I think you were asking about. I don't remember if you had found a couple of side quests and were asking opinion, or if you're exactly. I know we were trying to stay away from talking to you about the main quest line,
right?
But then we also sort of got into a little email conversation about some side quests, and so, like for example, your last episode had hooks for I guess like 3 or 4 different things were just fascinating. Some of the best side quests in the game. That's
thanks to you.
Well, no, it's you know, I'm only sharing sort of the
don't be modest.
Sharing the opinions of of a lot of the game players, but things like you met Edward Deegan and Jack Cabot. You met Ada the robot, And then you actually, I don't think we talked about this, but I was so happy that you did this because it's one of my favorite locations is the Tucker Memorial Bridge, the bridge that blows up. And I loved your little story about escaping the explosion at the Tucker Bridge. That was
I can't believe I didn't pull that one. Do you know which episode that came
it
from?
was the most recent one, the 22, I think it was.
I decided to go with a different clip from that one for some reason, but that was an amazing piece of audio work too. The ringing in the ears and the getting blown off the bridge and the waking up with the guys and being like not knowing where you were and shit. That was a really, really awesome piece of audio work too.
Thanks. That part took me a long time to do just because I knew what I wanted, and just putting all those pieces together. And actually what Pat was saying about using Adobe Audition, I'm not an expert in it by any means. So that was the first time that I had actually said, okay, I need to use some of the filters and things like that to sort of simulate either being underwater or then with the ears and things like that. So that was the first time I used those tools that way.
You did really great audio.
Thank you.
So it sounds really professional. Really, that was one thing I was noticing is like, you know, those the sort of segments that NPR always puts together where there's like, and we are in a public market, and then you hear it fade in, and then you hear the sounds of like lots of people chattering in the background and sales going on, and then like you hear the chickens and stuff, and then like the people and blah blah, you know, it comes in. I was just like, holy shit, Aaron is doing audio production that's every bit as good as these NPR segments that you hear. It's like these interesting life segment bits that you hear on like NPR or news segments all the time. So it's just really nice. It's incredible work there.
There was an album that I listened to as a child. It was, I think it was called like Real Ghost Stories or something like that. I don't know if any of you or anybody listening or whatever is old enough to remember. They used to have these on the back of Honeycombs boxes when we were kids. They had records.
Yeah.
Do you remember those?
Flexi discs, yeah.
Yes. So some of them are ghost stories, and one of them was like the Headless Horseman, and then there was the Hitchhiker, and it was just stories by this guy named Wade Denning, who lived, I think he was from Long Island, and he was from the New York area, and he was on Pitchfork Records. And of course I didn't know this when I was a kid, any of this, but these records were in the back of the Honeycombs, and I was just fascinated by them. What they were ghost stories, and they would put not music, but they would put sound effects and things in the background. And me and my brother we were totally absorbed by these things. And then they came out with a long playing record of them, and I still have it. And so that was kind of the inspiration for how I'm assembling these things. This guy, Wade Denning, who worked for this little tiny record company and put out these records on the back of Honeycombs, and then at like Woolworth, you know, that you'd find in the little 39-cent bin or whatever.
I remember pulling like flexi discs out of magazines or off the back of a Happy Meal or something. I remember I had a clear white plastic one of whale songs for a while when that was really popular to adopt a humpback whale in the early 80s or whatever. I definitely had some there. Or the McDonald's Big Mac McDLT quarter pounder with some cheese song. Do you remember that?
Oh my God. They were a big marketing tool, definitely.
But just as an interesting side note, maybe not interesting, that's for you to judge. When I was the music director at my college's radio station when Steve Malcolmus had left the band Pavement, and he was in the band The Jicks, and one of their first promotional items that they did was a clear plastic flexi, or flexi disc, whatever it's called, it's just floppy stuff, but they put one of those out with their first big hit. So I thought that was really funny.
That's an awesome idea.
Probably a cool collector's item by now. I should have grabbed onto that thing.
You don't still have it?
Oh, it belongs to the radio station.
Oh, it's a radio.
Technically, you're not supposed to
right.
pick that stuff out. You know what I mean? But yeah. So,
but to get back to Pat's thing, he actually had given me the idea to go to the.
Aaron, I hate to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna need you to sign off and hop back on really quickly.
Yeah, Andrew, let me try this time, Andrew, because I worry it's my setup. So let's do a test that way. Let me jump
both
on.
of you do it and come right quick. because it did go away for a while. To anyone listening in YouTube, I will tell you my favorite joke. This is not my joke. I didn't come up with this. This is from one of my favorite stand-up comedians, Doug Benson. Did you know that you are more likely to be killed by a domesticated pig than by a shark?
Get out.
Especially when swimming in pig-infested waters. That was my little intermission joke there, guys. I'm glad you came back to that. Let me get a time mark here of 36 something. Okay, Aaron, you were saying
Am I the
let's get back to Pat's point about whatever you were getting back to. So I'm going to time mark whenever you start saying that again.
Well, Pat was very very helpful in sort of, I was looking for interesting side quests that I could at least start, even though I'm supposed to be looking for my son, of course, which is the common joke, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But he said, there's this one and that one that a lot of people do. There's this one that will, if you don't do it first, there's a bug, and you may want to go toward the center of center north of the map, north of the Back Bay. So that is, I hadn't intended to go across the Tucker Memorial Bridge, but that's where I ended up. So I figured, well, that's close enough. He must be talking about Covenant that he wanted me to take a look at. So that's sort of all tied in very nicely. And I figured, well, how am I going to get to Covenant? And as soon as I got hurt on the bridge, I was like, okay, well, that's how I'm going to get to Covenant. So somebody's going to grab me out of the water here.
Yeah, that was really nice. Look, and actually, again, don't want to, but that really fits Covenant. So nice. And Covenant was indeed what I was thinking about. That you might. And I can't remember. Did you know about? Because Covenant's one of the places where you hear somebody say in Diamond City, "Oh, I hear Covenant's a great place. You might want to visit it," and then you'll get the map marker. Did you have the map marker before you traded? Okay.
No, I didn't. But I have finished it, and so
okay.
that's what I'm writing up now. But no, I didn't know that was there. So
yeah, because so did you finish the entire Covenant quest? You
yes.
have the town as a settlement
yes.
now. Okay, all right. So
yeah.
so you know that they're. I think the notion of them sort of like fishing somebody out and sort of putting you to their test is very,
right.
Very. It's funny because I actually just recently played that. For the first time, I actually played that pro Covenant, typical or pro. What do they call it's not Institute, but they're
years. What are they called?
It's the secret across the secret installation across the river or across the little lake there. Whatever that it's not Institute, but it's whatever they call that little outpost. And that was the first time I played pro outpost. And
you killed the synth in the cage.
Yeah, I actually literally did not know whether she was a synth or not because I had always rescued.
You've already done this, Aaron, right?
Yes. No, you're fine. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
So I had always rescued her, but this time, I've got a playthrough where I'm consciously trying to go different directions. And this was one of the ones. So I really just a couple days ago played that, and but that was so Andrew. That was actually what I was going to mention. Is that for the first time after almost 2 years? Oh, she was a synth. How about that?
And that was the first time you'd ever actually figured.
Yeah, and I think in at least 2 of my playthroughs, and this is why I'd warned Aaron about it. It bugged out on me because what could happen if you visit Covenant for the first time after beating the game, you will get there and it'll be all the way opened up. The gates will be open. The guy at the gate won't give you the test, and you can't advance the quest. You can talk to people, and you can. I think you might be able to just murder them all to claim covenant as a settlement, but you can't get the quest to advance. Normally, I think your only option is to murder the entire settlement, and then you can claim the workbench. So this time I was doing it just the Andrew. This is a game I've complained about where again no spoiler here because it's a bug. My main quest line is completely bugged out in this particular game, so I'm going around doing other stuff, and luckily enough, Covenant did not bug out.
Yeah, I didn't know that Dan was gonna basically make it impossible for me to finish that quest the way I wanted to. So I actually ended up playing it twice. And I left Dan back in Covenant.
I was just about to ask how many, how often do you have to redo stuff because it doesn't fit the storyline?
I don't really do it that much. This one was, if something goes horribly wrong and I'm like, no, that is not a choice I want to make, then I'll go back and do it. Like Dan, I'm like, what are you doing, Dan? Come on, you're killing me here.
Dan is one of my favorite things in the game, which is I don't know if you're familiar, Aaron, but I'm a big follower companion guy. Dan is one of those magical guys that is not a normal companion, but if you play the quest correctly, you can get him to follow you illegally, so he can be an extra, extra follower. Which
how is he as a follower?
Companions, yeah. So
how is he as a follower?
Will
he follow you with other companions?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay.
You can trick him. You can trick the game into like getting extra followers sometimes, and he's one of the guys that you can do that with. Yeah.
Does he talk to you at all? Is he like, what am I still doing here? Or
no, I mean, he just says his normal lines, like you guys are still kind of standing in Covenant or whatever. He still kind of has his normal behaviors. He just says them. Like the game doesn't really think you're supposed to do that. Like it doesn't think that we're going to try to do that. You know what I mean? So.
And it's kind of weird though if you finish that without him. He just, because I expected, okay, I'm going to go back to Covenant now, and I'm going to tell him what happened. You know, that everything, but no, he's gone, and I'm like, which is weird. I think, you know, I mean, what happened to Dan? Maybe I'll find out later. I don't know, but
no, he's out ski. He's gone.
Yeah.
Bizarre. Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's bizarre.
Did you explore that lake?
No, I have not explored the lake yet.
Walk around that lake a little bit. That's just across there from Covenant. So we need to get to another sound clip here, but when we come back, Aaron, I would really like to know, you mentioned that you were not going to be necessarily super stickler about sticking to Fallout lore. Now, I want to know what your relationship with Fallout lore is, what your background with Fallout is, what systems you've played it on, which games you've played, and all that when we come back here. But we're going to listen to another clip here. And speaking of followers, here's one of my favorites. This is the introduction of the character Piper in her first interactions with the mayor. This might not be the actual interactions at the gate. This might be the description of the broken mask incident in her paper, I think.
Well, Piper had used the mayor as a backdrop for her story, mentioning that as she sat a few seats down from him at Power Noodles, watching him consume his dinner, it occurred to her that something as simple as eating together is an activity humans shared that they thought was exclusively reserved for them alone and not for machines. Yet those people who assumed this had been wrong. That was it. That's what had gotten McDonough all riled up, that he thought perhaps Piper was accusing him of being a synth because she mentioned him in an article about Broken Mask. I looked up at Piper. Seriously, I said. Getting the picture now, she replied.
So there's another case of things that I would skip right over and not even notice. I didn't even know the mayor was a synth until the very end of the game. Is this just in the conversation that Piper has with you immediately, if you actually go slowly and pay attention to stuff?
Yeah, well, I didn't know he was in synth either until just now, but no, I'm just kidding. No, actually, the only reason why I know he's a synth is because somebody spoiled that for me. But that whole section of the paper was was still, it was not matter of fact. It was almost like you're going under the assumption that he's not a synth. Like
well, I apologize if
no. I'm just giving you a hard time, please.
That's the danger of this, man. This is a minefield. All of this stuff.
Yeah, I know.
I
feel bad for you guys. This is why I don't go on people's show. Like I feel terrible. Like you guys are like walking on eggshells. But seriously, don't worry about it at all, because there's been a couple things that have dropped, and the game is 2 years old, so it's my own fault if you know if something gets spoiled.
So let's get back into the lore then. What is your history with the Fallout? Are you a stickler for lore? Are you a story guy?
I'm a lot like you actually. With I sort of just play and end up rushing through, and I miss things, and it doesn't help that I have a bad memory. The reason why I incorporate all these things into the story is because I have that video recording, and I end up going back and studying some things that I missed to try and include them in the story. So yeah, the only reason why I get a little bit hung up on lore, if I can, is because I know how sensitive some people are to it, that they want, that it's important to them. And it's important to me too. I love the background, like the storyteller from, I'm not sure who does Shoddycast, I guess it is. I love that stuff, I love going through and learning about the background of, that all the research that they do. And just the background. It's quite an incredible world that Bethesda has put together. I mean, that's why we're all here. So yeah, I think it's important to somewhat stick to it if I can, but I can't, my terrible memory. And like you said, I tend to rush through things too. I may miss things as well. So it's kind of tough to know everything and try and incorporate it.
Well, Pat knows everything, and Denny and Ray. I don't know how, but all those guys, they know everything. How about your Fallout history? What's your experience with the game series?
I had a friend at work around 2006, 2007 who lent me his Fallout 3 Xbox 360 disc. We used to talk about games all the time, and I really couldn't get into it. I think what happened was I've heard this from a lot of people. I wandered somewhere I wasn't supposed to be, and I just kept getting killed. And I'm like, well, this isn't much fun. And so I dropped it for, a couple months, and then I ended up trying it again about a year later. I think I bought it on a Steam sale or not a Steam sale, a Xbox Marketplace sale for like $5 or whatever. And it just totally clicked. And then it became like, it was an addiction from there, and went to New Vegas. And then I ended up buying them on PC and modding them and playing them modded with the graphics enhancements and everything. And that was it. I was a goner. How about you guys?
Fallout 4 was actually my first Fallout game.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I make the joke constantly on the show that there is absolutely zero reason that I should be hosting a show about Fallout, considering what very extremely little exposure I have to the series in general. With this Fallout Roundtable, we're about to do Fallout New Vegas. This will be the first time I've played through Fallout New Vegas at all. I did a mad dash of Fallout 3 in about over a 2-week span early in the summer, just to say that I have played the game before, but I really did nothing besides like run from main quest to main quest to main quest.
What were I'm interested as starting with Fallout 4. What was it like going back to what system did you play it on first of all?
I'm on Xbox One for Fallout 4, and then I tried New Vegas on PlayStation 3 and got to the front gates of the strip, and then the PlayStation 3 basically started having a mental meltdown, and it was so really horribly staggered by the time I tried it. So that's as far as I've gotten in New Vegas, is basically getting to the strip. And 3, let's see, I played 3 came with my Fallout bundle. I got the Xbox One Fallout 4 bundle, which came with a digital copy of Fallout 3, and I just played that on the Xbox One. And of course, the graphics are a huge step back, and the mechanics are really weird. My main problem is I play in third person always, and the difference in the perspective of third person in Fallout 3 is just really jarring. It's not a good
Yeah.
so that made the game a little less enjoyable, but I thought the story was actually pretty great. And
Right.
of course, the 8 or whatever 9-year-old graphics and mechanics are to be expected. I didn't go in wanting it to be going toe to toe with the smoothness of Fallout 4. I wasn't expecting anything like that.
Yeah.
People told me that it was a great story, so I really tried to pay attention to that main storyline with the water and all that. So
Yeah.
it was a really good experience. I'm glad I did it, and I hopefully we'll be able to do a really in-depth roundtable about it someday. But you know what I mean. I just needed to say that I played it.
Yeah, it's odd. I mean, I'm very excited that I'll be able to listen to the New Vegas roundtable. I'm wondering now. I've seen this recent.
Aaron, I'm sorry, Aaron.
Yeah, when you luck out.
Yeah, hop off and hop back again. Sorry.
Yeah, that was the first time I was hearing it from Aaron noticeably on my side. Are you hearing anything for me?
Nope, you sound clear as a bell there.
Okay.
Hey, do you have a?
Is my gain too high? Is that what's going on here?
No, it's a weird static I'm getting. I don't know. It's just something I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's unfortunately a little common with the Hangout. I mean,
okay.
we get what we pay for on the Hangout, right?
Yeah, and it's either that or Skype, and Skype has weird echoes. So it's either do you want like weird clicks or weird echoes? So who knows? All right. Sorry. You were saying.
Yeah, I was saying how I'm really excited to be able, like, I'm going to be able to actually listen to the New Vegas roundtable, but I've really wondered, there seems to, in some of the threads and things that I've seen various places, it seems like there's this sudden backlash against New Vegas for some reason. Have you heard about that? And
no. The only thing I've ever heard about Fallout New Vegas is how dare Fallout 4 even exist? Because
yeah. Well, just sort of keep an eye out for it, because there seems to be this sort of I don't know if it's a new thing that's just sort of gaining steam that people are.
Can you give me a little basis, at least?
Just like it seems like it's a point, maybe a point of honor or something, to be able to say, oh, the graphics were terrible, and how dare anybody say New Vegas is such a great game because it's terrible. I don't know if it's people who only played Fallout 4 or but I have seen it more and more. It's really surprised me.
I find that people who complain about other people's creations instead of just holding their tongues aren't generally worth listening to.
Point.
I mean, you should praise the things you like, not discourage the things you don't like.
If only we could all do that.
Great. So I would like to travel downtown, Aaron. And speaking of which, have you lived in Boston?
Yes. Yeah, I went to school there.
I was going to say, what the fuck? How do you know the city like the back of your hand? You're not doing this with a literal map of Boston in front of you, are you? Okay, because you open up your Pip-Boy map, it doesn't break down the neighborhoods, but if you go to an exit door from, like if you're over at the brewery and you go to the exit and it'll say exit, I know this isn't correct, but it'll be like exit financial district or whatever, you know what I mean? So you actually know each fucking literal neighborhood that they're talking about.
It's been a long time, but it's sort of, if when I go on Wikipedia or whatever or something, it's sort of easy to refresh my memory. But like I said, I do have a terrible memory, so it needs a lot of refreshing sometime. But it's interesting how they compressed everything. I know a lot of the areas, but
I remember Pat took a vacation shortly after the game released and took a bunch of pictures of actual landmarks in the game and was kind of explaining to me how they've compressed the city down. It was actually pretty interesting. So do you have any more insights on that?
Me or Pat?
Aaron, you? Compress the city?
Only that, see, I lived in the Back Bay. I went to Emerson College, and they had a couple dorms just near Diamond City, right about where, what's the apparel, Backstreet Apparel?
Yep.
I basically lived at Backstreet Apparel.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. Did you ever have a hostage situation in your front room?
I didn't. It was a total surprise to me. but the interesting thing was that Diamond City or Fenway was not 2 blocks south. You know, so.
Yeah. I love that you don't call it Diamond City. You call it Fenway all the time. I love that.
Do they call it Fenway in the game at all?
Almost never.
I don't know that they talk about Green Diamond and the Great Jewel, and I don't know that they ever say Green Monster or Fenway. I don't.
Huh.
I bet you Major League Baseball would sue them or make.
No, they couldn't sue them. For, you could talk about. Yeah, I mean, remember, just there's no. Except for sort of like major public buildings like Faneuil Hall or the Customs House, nothing has a proper name, right? So whatever reason, I doubt it. I think it's more flavor than being afraid of being sued. But now that you're, I don't remember. They talk about the Green Jewel and the Diamond of the the Jewel of the Commonwealth, and they talk about the Wall, but I don't know that they ever say the Green Monster, or they talk about how the Wall is always green,
right?
And they talk about the of course all the goofy fake baseball history that Mo spouts, which I think is just a riot.
We'll get into that green wall here in a little bit.
Yeah. But I don't know that. But I think that's right. I think it's very natural for Samuel to say Fenway because he's only been awake for a few weeks or a couple months or whatever. It's not
3 weeks, I think. Now you're in November, I think, in the story, if I remember right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So not even a month. Yeah.
Yep.
So Trinity Tower is a real thing in Boston.
Trinity Tower.
Trinity Church is
Trinity
real.
Church is. Yeah. I don't think Trinity Tower is probably the John Hancock building, like some version of the John Hancock building, so John Hancock Trinity Tower is all pretty much glass, right? As far as I remember. It's been a while since I was in that section.
The game, yeah.
It's very modern. I mean, it's like Fallout 4 modern, not like we would think of modern, but like they're modern, right? Yeah.
It's got to be the John Hancock building, especially as close as it is to Trinity Church. So yeah. So I don't think there's a Trinity
let's take
Tower.
Let's take a trip up Trinity Tower.
We found the source of the distress call, a guy named Rex Goodman, who had been locked up in a maintenance building atop the tower. But the most astonishing thing was that he wasn't alone. Trapped up there with him was another super mutant, a friend appropriately named Strong. Rex instructed us to follow Strong down off the tower as he knew the quickest way to the bottom. We eventually made it down to street level, and I took the opportunity to ask Rex how he had come to be trapped with a friendly super mutant. He said he was an actor who had been trying to give the super mutants a bit of culture. He thought if they could experience the majesty of Shakespeare, it would change them forever. He thanked us for saving him to some radio station to resume his acting career.
I think it's time I
With that,
left
he
this
disappeared into
awful
darkness, leaving Nick and me with this green muscled creature staring down at us, going on about how some guy named Macbeth had told him he needed to find the milk of human kindness. He said he'd stay with us and try to learn where to find it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the game. I always love bringing Strong out into the street for the first time. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
so
there's the whole quest with him that I haven't done yet, right? The whole Max Goodman thing, I think. The Silver Shroud, is it?
Shroud is not Strong. It's Goodman. Yeah,
the acting part.
No, well,
Rex, I don't think.
But have you freed? Well, no, we just put you. That was what we just heard. Was you'd already freed Rex? So that's really all. There's nothing else for Rex.
Oh, okay.
Silver Shroud is a distinct quest line, but it's not with Rex.
Okay.
It involves radio, and there's some other sort of related themes, I guess, but it doesn't involve Rex directly.
I think if you go to that radio station, that Rex will be there.
Yes.
Yeah. You can still go talk to him if
but there's not a follow-up quest.
Yeah, if your character just wants to go say hi or whatever.
Okay.
Hi, Rex. Say, hey, what's up?
Hey, remember when I rescued you?
And oddly, they never do. They're so they have that, it's so funny. They have that one dialogue. Oh, thank you for it. And after that, they just like they don't regular. But Michelle, one of our show regulars, he's been on the show a couple of times and drops out of the chat fairly often. He's on the Facebook group. He was the player Aaron who actually maxed. He had a character that he did like a very hardcore role play and maxed her out to level 270 or whatever. You just threw. Really took her through, the whole game, and he's got her settled down on Spectacle Island with a family now and everything else. It's a great story. But that's one of his pet peeves that he shared, is that you do all these things, you spend hours and hours with these people, and or months and months with these people, hundreds, thousands of hours of gameplay, and you go back to your settlement, and they still say, "Hope you're not here to cause trouble." You're not one of those, like they've never seen you before.
Yeah. What have you done for me lately?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a common complaint where the Minutemen, you're granted the rank of general, but then you're immediately bossed around the whole time.
Yeah. Or the same. It's the same with all of them too. There's a not to jump ahead. I don't want to spoil it for, but there's an equivalent thing with the Brotherhood as well. There's an equivalent, stuff in the end. I can tell you off street another time, Andrew, if you're not remember what I'm talking about. But there's an equivalent thing with them as well. So it's I guess it's like that. You have the moment of dialogue, but then I think because it's that's the downside, I think, of the open-endedness of Fallout 4 is that the characters, the NPCs, kind of have to survive the end of the game, and so they kind of go back into their just canned dialogue, their just normal interaction, as opposed to sort of having sort of a permanent branch. And I guess it's just would be just too hard to do.
Guys, come on. They've accomplished so much that it'll get there eventually.
They kind of did that in Fallout 3. And I think maybe if they had decided this was something that they were going to do for all the NPCs, that maybe they could have just added a few dialogue lines that changed something. Like, do you remember in Fallout 3, one of the things that I loved about Fallout 3 was when you were doing certain things in the Commonwealth, like Three Dog would find out about it, and he'd be like, well, this is what this guy, now he's doing this, and now he's doing, oh my God, he killed all those people. Can you believe it? What a dirtbag. And I'm like, oh shit, what did I do? Like, I pissed off Three Dog.
Yeah.
That just adds a whole other element to things. And I loved that. And I think maybe just with a little extra something for the NPCs, they could fix that thing, because it does seem like a lot of people notice, how cold they are to you all of a sudden.
Yeah. And I think that's where it's the trade-off, and I can see strengths and weaknesses of both. Where effectively in 4 you kind of have the radiant mechanic, and the game like explicitly doesn't end, whereas in 3, ignoring the way the DLCs changed it, but the game it had a very linear path, and it ended. And Andrew, you may not have exported as much since you zipped through the game pretty quickly, but there's the whole karma mechanic in 3, and that's kind of how the things you do sort of affect your karma, and that tells you whether you're a wasteland hero or a wasteland villain or whatever. And Three Dog kind of parallels your development with the things that Aaron was talking about. So that I think that's. I think Three Dog is a really special character in Fallout 3 because of the way he sort of tracks you throughout the game.
He's like the Greek singing narrator.
The one-man chorus,
and your moral conscience too, to a certain extent.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dennis said it was very hard to get a negative on the karma scale, but since I rushed through it so quickly, I had to force my way through a lot of interactions and kill a lot of people to do things. My character was like very, very hated and bad by everyone by the end of Fallout 3.
Yeah, I think I haven't done it in a long time. I think if you just like steal a lot of stuff, and break into it, it's not.
Well, I was doing that sort of stuff to rush through the game, Yeah,
it is. I think the Fallout 3 equivalent of this is in, and I think each of the 3 kind of open world games has a version of this. In Fallout New Vegas, the NCR is kind of, it's easy to sort of default to the NCR because they have so many more quests. And Andrew, you'll see that when we get into the roundtable.
Yeah,
There's so many of the side quests are NCR related.
I'm excited to pick up that extra XP. Aaron, did you ever try to play Fallout or Fallout 2? You ever try to go back to those?
I tried Fallout. The first time I tried it, I just couldn't figure out the mechanics and kept getting killed in the cave with the rats. And the second time, I think I got, to different areas and things, but it just wasn't. I have a backlog of Steam games like everybody else does, and it was just like, I would love to go through this. I just don't have the time to.
I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't ever attempted them either. We were speaking earlier about how I blow past things, and here's an interaction that I thought was a very nice piece of audio work that I'd like to highlight that I missed, or just blew past it and hurried through the dialogue like an absent-minded jerk or whatever here. But this, I thought this was a very nice piece of audio work here. So let's listen to this. I believe it's an Assaultron here, and their plea for help.
We found the source of the distress call, a guy named Rex Goodman, who had been locked up in a maintenance building atop the tower. But the most astonishing
That's the
thing...
wrong one, right?
Yeah, that's Rex again.
Sorry about that.
For a moment, the breeze changed direction, now coming down the hill and back of the little park, and I seemed to hear a mechanical voice similar to the kind I had heard at the robotics disposal facility. I couldn't make out what it was saying, but it startled me. I got to my feet quickly and made toward the hill. Dogmeat was already ahead of me, running up a road that led under a gigantic highway overpass. He stopped just before it and was sniffing at something on the bank. As Nick and I got closer, the robotic voice got louder. About halfway between us and Dogmeat was a destroyed Protectron, along with a dead trader whose merchandise was spilled all over the roadway. Whoever killed him had just left it all. At first, I thought the robotic voice might be coming from the Protectron, but the voice wasn't quite as mechanical as the traditional Protectron voice pack. No, this voice had more inflection. It had softer edges, and it was coming from farther up the road. It kept repeating, "Alert, critical signs." When we reached the object, it was clear why it was saying this. Lying in front of us, propped up on a metal case on the side of the road, was a humanoid-type robot. Its torso was resting against the case, its head was sitting on top, and its arms and legs were about a foot away in the road. This robot was much more streamlined and slender than a Protectron. It looked like it might be able to walk around as easily as Valentine was walking. I managed to get it to tell me what happened, at least a bit. It said it had been tracking a mercenary and that he killed us. The traitor had most likely...
He killed us.
That was a haunting scene. I remember playing that for the first time. I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah. Aaron, hop off and hop back on and tell us about the haunting scene.
Hey, Andrew, I may maybe we can wind up to. I don't want to cut you and Aaron off, but yeah. I may wind up.
All right. Be sure to pop off any pertinent last questions before you hop off there, Pat.
Yeah. Aaron. Well, Andrew, you're gonna do an edit here, right, for the posted show?
Yeah. I'm marking all these down.
Okay. Yeah. So, Aaron, I usually I start turning into a pumpkin if we go much past 11 o'clock. So, right. But I don't want to cut you and Andrew off. So, this has been terrific. Really enjoyed this, and I look forward to listening to what you guys cover. So maybe. When we get back on here, you can pick up the story here, and then Aaron, if there's any last kind of things you wanted to cover with both of us on, we can do that. And then Andrew, I was actually just going to do one other. I want to make sure we give Aaron a chance to kind of pimp his the site. Aaron, I don't know if you've got a Patreon or anything where you're trying to get
does have
any projects or anything you want to promote. Please do.
Yeah, that. I don't want to keep you guys any longer than. This has been great. I really.
Aaron, before Pat leaves, also ask him what direction you wanted to head.
Yes, we'll do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's not a hard stop, but I just start winding down. So
gotcha.
Yeah. So okay. All right, Andrew.
Time now. I forget what you're talking about, Aaron, but
the Assaultron.
Yeah.
Spooky Assaultron.
Now go.
Yeah, that was a really haunting scene there, I remember playing that for the first time and just how I was like, oh my God, what am I getting into? What's coming up? But it was cool. There's these moments in Fallout 4 where you're just like, everything's just sort of comes together, and I think a lot of people remember these little moments, and it really gives, I don't know, it shows you how much attention Bethesda can put into the writing on some of these sequences,
Yeah, that whole it could have its frustrating moments if you're like doing a multiple playthrough or whatever, but like that search for Kellogg, I think is really powerful. That whole thing where you find the Assaultron, your dog meat, and there's the booby traps, and that's a lot of fun doing that. Just tracking Kellogg down, and then of course you get into the big fight with him and everything else. And that is, I think that sequence is very well done.
Definitely.
Yeah, the like Pat, I've recently played a character where my main story broke, so I'm stuck at a part in the main story, which I was sort of upset about because I haven't played the main storyline in a long time, and I was really excited to get back through it with the character, and then it broke and I couldn't play it any longer.
That's terrifying for me. Like, I have certain mods. I really have only stuck to visual mods because I don't want to do anything that could potentially break.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what are you doing to prevent yourself from this character?
Nothing. I mean, I'm just sort of playing fast and loose and hope that nothing happens, because
you should save in the cloud every couple weeks or something.
I should do that. Yeah, I haven't been doing that, and I have tonight. As soon as I get off of this, I'm going to do that.
Wow, what is that?
That was crazy.
Was that Pat?
No, I was. What was that?
It wasn't me. Wow.
Holy cow, a ghost just came through.
That
Somebody
was
NSA is going, well, how dare you let that go?
No, that was spooky.
That was bizarre.
Oh my
God. Got
god.
it on tape, right?
Yeah, we will I'm gonna loop that 100 times. There's some sort of hidden message in there. We're gonna play that backwards, see if someone was talking to us or something. So speaking of hidden messages and secret directions of telling us where to go, Aaron, did you have any suggestions that you needed from Pat?
Yes,
about
I do.
Where this character, like any stumbling points you want to avoid or anything like.
Well, here's the question: as the two of you, sort of, you're one of the major parts of this community. I've been trying to figure out, like, as far as factions go. I know I haven't run into the railroad yet. I know there's a railroad, and I know it's controversial for whatever reason. And then I've run into people who are just like all about the Brotherhood of Steel. Nobody really seems to be into the Well, I'm not going to say that, because I'm sure there are people who love the Minutemen. I love the Minutemen too. They're awesome. I'm just not a big, huge Preston fan at the moment. But so my thought, I went with the NCR on New Vegas because, as you mentioned, it sort of led itself to, a good conclusion being the NCR. This I'm not really sure what to do, because my thought, just not knowing a lot about what happens next, my thought is to go with the railroad. I don't know why that is, but that is sort of my feeling right now. But I know that there's a lot of people who are just like, no, it's got to be Brotherhood of Steel all the way. And just sort of wondering, without, I don't know how much you can tell me, but what is the whole community thought on Brotherhood of Steel and Railroad, as far as like siding with one of these two factions?
So I would say one thing that would be a significant influence was whether you have formulated for Samuel a very specific view about sense. Because I think the Minutemen are somewhat sort of neutral. They're kind of about what they're about, building settlements and trying to protect people and, defend against raiders and gunners and super mutants. The other three all have a unique perspective around sense. Like what does sense mean in the society of the Commonwealth? And
Right.
I think that if you have formed for Samuel a very specific sense or good, sense or abuse, sense or a tool,
Gotcha.
that would push you very strongly towards one of those three factions. If you just see sense as part of the weather, hey, they're just one more thing that's out here in this crazy place, and I'm looking for my kid.
Yeah.
Then you might frankly stick with the Minutemen.
No, that's actually true. So just answer me this question: how does Samuel feel about sense?
I think Samuel would probably say,
especially after playing Covenant, which we haven't recorded yet.
I think he'd probably say that since that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Have probably been influenced by the things that humans have done to them. That's probably where I'm at with that, and where Samuel would be with that. That if maybe since would not knowing where the story goes, that maybe he's going to keep an open mind about since, like, obviously there may be some ruling force or something that's causing them to do certain things, but maybe if they were, left up to their own devices, they wouldn't be this evil presence that seems to be kidnapping people or whatever. Yeah. Again, not knowing how things are going, I think that's probably what he's thinking at the moment.
Okay, so that seems like he is slightly not indifferent, but sort of indifferent. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I think that's fair.
But would he defend if he knew something? If he knew there was a settlement that had people and a few cents, would he also care about the cents in that settlement if a bunch of ghouls were attacking or something?
That's tough. I think he would. I think obviously he's on a mission, but yeah, I think he would probably look if there are synths that are, well, look, there's Jack Valentine, right? Jack Valentine's a synth. So he's a good guy. So I think there's probably good synths, maybe. Yeah. I'm probably pissing off a lot of people right now.
You actually have a you just brought up Nick Valentine. You have this. I wish I would have clipped this. You have this awesome description of the flesh hanging off of his like mechanics and stuff like that. I wish I would have clipped that one because it was a beautiful piece of description too of Nick's face there.
I was worried how he was going to be looked at when he went back to Red Rocket. Like no one seems to. People who haven't seen since don't seem to bother.
Yeah. It's just like Pat was talking about earlier. They just continue on with their normal.
Right.
Pat, I have a clear answer. Of course, what I think that this character, which faction they should do, but it is, of course, always my answer.
I would say it's one of two. I would say it's either Minutemen or Railroad.
Yeah.
And I think either one could work.
Because he needs to go experience the Railroad to actually see what they are like in order to tell what his character. He cannot make this decision yet. Is going to be our final answer. But I think I'm leaning towards Minutemen as plenty cool. And you can be on the side of the Minutemen. Now I'll just let you figure stuff out as you go. Yeah, no, but like I agree with Pat. Minutemen or Railroad could work still at this point. You've talked to the Brotherhood.
Yes.
You know their mood about sense. How do you feel about how does your character feel about
that? Kind of bothered him.
Yeah.
So that shows you that. So
yeah, but is there a whole section of the game then that's not going to be open to me if I decide that I'm not going to go on any of these missions?
You can play very deep into certain aspects.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm surprised how deep they let you go.
Yeah, remember in New Vegas, three as well, but I remember it more vividly personally in New Vegas. There's a quest where it says, "Hey, if you go any further, you're going to become the irrevocable enemy of X." Yeah, you get a similar kind of point, but it's quite late in the game, and you have a lot of degrees of freedom until you get to a specific point, and there is a specific quest in the relatively late game that's your turn, but it is pretty late. So you can play around with any of the four factions. The other thing I was going to mention about the Brotherhood, I think there are people who are very, very pro Brotherhood, and I think not in all cases, it's not always the case that it's because of their attitude about sense in Fallout 4, because I think there are people who like the Brotherhood because of what they were in either 3 or New Vegas and want to kind of follow their path. There's also from a role play perspective, for people that want to really play up their character, their version of Samuel, their main character with the past military service, that's a natural kind of branch into the Brotherhood for some people because of the quasi-military nature of that organization. So that's another thing I think that attracts to some people. And plus, they have cool toys. They have the power armor.
Yes.
They have the Gatling lasers. If you're into that kind of stuff, they do have the cool toys.
Their whole sort of thing is collect and preserve technology at any cost.
Preserve for themselves.
Right?
Yeah.
And I thought in 4 that they were really presented as really douchey military dude bros guys. But After
I agree.
Fallout 3, my heart melted a little bit for the Brotherhood. So in order to actually have an opinion of Fallout of the Brotherhood, you need to experience them in Fallout 3, I think, as well.
Yeah, I was surprised the direction they took it in 4. It was very
different. Yep. Yeah, and I think they do. I think they explain it in game. If you sort of follow sort of the history of the characters and you read the terminal entries. I mean, I think you have to. I don't know if there's. I don't know if everything is in game or if some of it may be things that sort of emerge and maybe side projects or whatever. But they do sort of explain it. That because of the leadership changes of the Brotherhood over the course of the 3 games have kind of directed them. So it's not all of a sudden you got like the exact same organization. They become like the douchey dude bros, but
there's different factions.
Yeah. So I give them credit that they've explained it.
Give them different flavors and stuff.
Yeah.
It's good. So if you want my honest answer, I would say you have to go visit the railroad, but I'm saying you're going down the Minutemen / railroad path.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
But that really I can't even say that, because until you hear more information from other people, you still might be influenced in another direction. And I'm excited for you to speak to these other people. You know what I mean? So you have to go in with an open mind. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think there was that tie-in with Fallout 3 with the self-aware robot from Rivet City. I don't know how this ties in, but I think is that a stated tie-in with Fallout 4, or was it?
You get a very you will get a very clear picture of that individual once you finish. By the time you finish Fallout 4,
cool.
That will be very clear.
Yes.
And Andrew, you probably didn't even encounter that in 3 because it's a side quest. It's not a main quest line item.
No, I was kind of like, I don't know. I thought that I ran into some robot. Isn't there a Codsworth style robot?
No,
in my house. I have a house.
Yes, you do. Yeah. It's I forget what it's called in 3, but yeah, you do get a Codsworth analog. Yeah.
All right. So Pat, do you have any last question for Aaron?
No, I think we covered everything. So Aaron, this has been a lot of fun. Stay in touch. Come back on in maybe in a few months after a few more episodes. And Andrea, again, I don't want to cut you guys off if you want to keep chatting for a little bit. So I will sign off. And I guess from a show promo perspective, Andrew, we got Roundtable New Vegas Roundtable kicking off next
we're
week.
going over the first 3 sort of what are they called? Not trial quests, but introduction
tutorial. Yeah. We're gonna do so. Play along, folks. Get ready to drop us a note with your character, and you let us know what your character's setting up. I think the tutorial quests are going to be pretty much the same for everybody. There's only a couple variations, but certainly we want to hear about people's characters. And Aaron, good luck with the show. Look forward to the next episode dropping, and I will catch you guys later.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks a lot, Pat.
Awesome.
Have a good one. Yeah, Aaron, so I wanted to continue on with a few more clips, if you don't mind. We were just speaking about the Brotherhood, and it actually coincides really well with our next little clip here. There's this whole thing about war propaganda, and you gave us an awesome little history lesson that I thought was really well put together here. So let's check in and see a little bit about the history of the war in Fallout here.
When the Chinese invaded Alaska in the winter of 2066, after the United States cut off oil supplies, the U.S. government began shipping T-45 sets to the Anchorage front line as quickly as they could be made. The technological advances offered by this new form of mechanized power suit were always in the war propaganda of the day. America was going to win and liberate Alaska. Yet 8 years later, the war was still raging, and the powers that be decided to bring the war to mainland China, and the T-45 was one component of that. It didn't make much difference. The American forces quickly became involved in a stalemate there as well, until 2 years later when this T-51 power armor was developed and brought over. It helped the U.S. to quickly tear through the Chinese supply lines, and was largely credited as being the key to the United States' eventual recapturing of Anchorage in January of 2077.
That's a nice little history lesson. I sometimes just kind of blow through terminals and books and stuff like that and don't really pay attention. So it's really nice to listen to your show. I feel like it's a wonderful companion piece to Fallout 4 with all sorts of lush explanations and sort of you just take it with a brush and sort of excuse me, I have a cold and I sound horrible here. But you with a brush, you sort of just take this world and fan it out, and it's such a wonderful companion piece to the silly little video game that we love so much. And I love just like the history lesson that you give right there. And I'm sure that's somewhere that where do you pick up that information? Did you read a book? Did you go to a wiki? Where do you start?
First of all, thank you. And yeah, I rely very heavily on being able to do research from the great archives that people have put together for this whole universe. The Fallout wikis. I just try and research all these things. If there's something that I think can add to an episode, and then try and rewrite stuff, or try to put together, stuff from different locations into sort of a history kind of thing. But yeah, it's that's my favorite part of doing this is when I have a chance to sort of bathe in this whole world that, not just Bethesda, but the fans have put together. There's just so many amazing projects out there that people have done, and I borrow from those too, like everybody else. I try not to steal anything, but obviously the history is the history. So when people write it up, all that stuff is very helpful, that I can take bits and pieces of that and sort of incorporate it into this story. So I'm definitely relying on other people.
That was a nice little tidbit on power armor. What's your opinion on power armor?
I don't use it generally.
Yeah, your character, I remember you're about to gear up and head towards the glowing sea.
I'm going to use it for that, definitely. Yeah, I used it in Fallout 3 and New Vegas because it was just really another kind of armor that was able, that you could use. Fallout 4, when they changed it and you have to use the...
Right? Yeah, it's more of a vehicle than it is.
Yes.
armor.
So it's different, you know, the whole mechanics of it are very different, and I find it kind of, I don't like the HUD on it, first of all, and second of all, I play with a resource cheat. Like, I carry everything with me. I know it's terrible.
Surprised you brought that. I wasn't going to call you out.
I make no bones about it. I cheat when it comes to that because I'm a total hoarder. So I don't spawn things for myself, but I will carry a lot of ceramic and copper if I can find it, and I don't want to have to. I don't like fast traveling. I try and walk everywhere.
Well, speaking of ceramic and copper, what do you build and stuff? Like, this is the first Fallout game that is incorporating settlement building and settler recruitment. Do you do a lot of that stuff?
No, well, the first time I got, when I first started playing Fallout, I think probably the first month I played it, I didn't leave. I was just doing building because I have a huge Minecraft. I had a huge Minecraft addiction.
Oh, I understand. Okay. That is one question I wanted to ask then, because you will make a point when you're out adventuring, when you come back to, say, Red Rocket, you'd be like, oh, and while I was gone, they had really fortified the area by the time we had gotten back. And I was wondering, oh, is Aaron really going through and building walls around Red Rocket and then pretending his character is stumbling upon this for the first time when he comes up the road to the Red Rocket? Like, how are you incorporating that sort of do you build, is basically what I'm asking, and incorporate that into the story like the settlers have done it?
Yeah, I did at the beginning, especially because towards the beginning, the first maybe 7 or 8 episodes, I was also doing those YouTube videos. So when I would take screenshots, because I was doing so much building, I had to sort of figure out a way that the buildings were getting done so that when people saw the Red Rocket and all the walls around it, I had to mention it. So I haven't been doing that lately. So yeah, it kind of doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for me to be carrying all this stuff around if I'm not really building much anymore. But
yeah. The first time I was building a lot in the game, I was over at, have you stumbled across, I can't remember if your character has come across, you've had to have, the drive-in movie theater? Have you come across the drive-in movie theater?
In Fallout 4?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
No, I haven't seen that.
Sorry, I'm not going to say anything more.
No, you can. I mean, it's totally fine.
There is a drive-in movie theater. Sorry to spoil that. But
that's cool.
I was doing some building there for the first time when I was getting into building a lot. And when you go into that building menu, it has like your sort of like your bed count and your like electricity and water,
right,
and your protection or your defense, right? So I spent all this time scrapping all this metal and making a chain link fence all the way around this huge ass fucking drive-in movie theater. This just like one of the most massive land area settlement.
Wow. And
I was thinking that, oh, all I have to do is make this one last final link in the chain. I spent like an hour and a half making this fence, this horrible little fence that was going all the way around.
I know where this is going.
I was thinking, as soon as I click this last one in place, the fence number is going to jump up a ton because I now have a fence, and it didn't do it. Of course, what the fuck? It's before I was understanding the mechanics of how the defense count actually works. I'm like, oh, they really just want you to build a bunch of traps everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I ran into a similar issue in Covenant because Covenant has all those turrets around the top, right? So now that it's a settlement, I'm like, okay, well, I should already have all this defense. I mean, the whole place is walled around. You have turrets all around the top, and my defense is like at 0. And I'm like, something's got to be wrong here.
Those are kind of acting weird anyway. I think I noticed them acting strangely and just playing around, did a quick save and then decided to fuck around with them just because my character was like, why are these? It's just like, when the characters don't acknowledge that you've done all these things, but you're important in the game. It's like these turrets don't notice it's like after you've completed whatever feat you're going to in Covenant, they just sort of like shut off or whatever. I think you can attack them and they won't attack you back. And I think you can blow them up and the other ones won't point at you. So what I'm saying is I think you can destroy them all and replace them with your own, and those will obey. I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The
Well,
mechanics of the game gets a little wonky sometimes.
Yeah. I just thought that was bizarre. But yeah, I love the drive-ins in Fallout 3, and I think that was that one in New Vegas. Did you play any of the DLC for New Vegas?
Hey, Aaron, hop off back on back real quick. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yep. You were saying about drive-ins.
Yeah, the one of the DLCs for New Vegas has a drive-in that's pretty cool. So
oh nope, let's see, what have I done? The New Vegas is now backwards compatible from Xbox 360 to Xbox One, so I went and purchased the Xbox 360, and it comes with 2 discs, and I only loaded the first disc, and the second disc has all of the DLC stuff on it, because if you load the second disc, you're going to get like all these like bonus explorer pack, bonus pack, bonus this pack, and like you start with like missile launchers and shit, and my character.
You want to start from the bare.
I wanted to start from scratch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I
love drive-ins
DLC, but that's a question I actually wanted to bring up actually here. For the longest while, I was wondering, and I can't tell yet, does he have Far Harbor and Nuka World loaded? I can't tell. There's nothing really sparking yet in the character's story that he has any of the DLC loaded. And then all of a sudden you stumbled upon Ada, the robot. Right. So I was like, oh, he's got some DLC loaded. So he at least has Automatron, but I still can't tell if Far Harbor loaded or not.
I do,
or Nuka World.
Yeah, I have both of those. The plan is to finish, like, I have no idea how far I am on the main quest. I don't know where the glowing sea is in this whole thing.
Yeah. That's a whole thing in the game. Like, I remember being like, I am totally like 3/4 of the way through this fucking main line, and I was barely 25%. So don't expect to be
all right
very far along yet.
I really need to kick this up then, because the new one, the Fallout 5 is going to be out before I'm done with this. So
no, that would actually be amazing if you release the final episode on Fallout 5's release date.
Let's see if I can manage that. But I definitely want to do the DLCs, especially Far Harbor. I'm looking forward to that, and people really seem to love Nuka World too. So I'm definitely gonna. The plan is to do those as well once the main quest is done.
As a celebration, of completing the main quest, you should celebrate by taking a vacation over to either Far Harbor or Nuka World. Yeah, that would be great.
Do you have to take Nick with you to Far Harbor, or
you don't have to? But the game is definitely accentuated. They include a bunch of extra dialogue for when you do bring Nick along.
Okay.
So just doing it both ways and enjoying whichever way you see best. But they do add a bunch of extra dialogue for specifically the companion Nick.
Okay.
So play it both ways, and we'll see what you think. Yeah.
Definitely.
So the next, we'll see clip and see. I just thought that the audio. This is just another one where I thought it was just a really good, really clever audio work here. I have stumbled upon this relay tower many times, and I still don't know what they do when you. Yeah. There's like a couple of them around the landscape, and I still haven't figured this puzzle out. But this is I think the first time you've stumbled upon this puzzle.
On a house-sized concrete slab just before the landscape turned back into wilderness was a large relay tower with 3 satellite dishes and a terminal beside it up a metal staircase on a small platform. The dishes were close to the ground, and hacking the terminal, I discovered they were motorized and that they were in a retracted state. I decided to fire them up, and a chain drive pulled the dish array about 100 feet above me. 3 new radio frequencies now appeared on my Pip-Boy radio. One by one, I tuned into the signals, but they were all full of static. I could make out a couple words for each of them, but that was all. The signal wasn't nearly strong enough to be useful, at least from where I was standing. I left the dishes raised and headed into the wasteland north of Fort Hagen.
And I kind of thought, man, I wonder if Aaron's some kind of engineer or something, because he knew like the mechanical parts of the relay tower when it was raising, what they were actually called. Like,
Yeah,
and you don't have to reveal to us. That was just the thought I had. I was like, man, this guy kind of knows some stuff.
it's the question I had. Did you try to leave them on and maybe follow one of them? Because I think you can pick which frequency you're tuned to.
Does your Pip-Boy show 3 different
I believe
channels?
it does. I think it does. I
No.
could be wrong. It's either on the transmitter itself that you select it and then tune it in on your Pip-Boy, or it's on your Pip-Boy. I don't remember.
Yeah,
But
I don't know if you've done anything yet in Fallout 4, but there's a like a range proximity percentage thing where like if you have to find a subject, it's just like you don't know exactly where it is, but it's like you are 33%. Oh, 34, you're a little getting warmer, like a getting warmer, getting colder type.
That's what I was thinking maybe this was. Have you done that part with
No.
any? No, you haven't.
This game is so expansive. Like everyone says 3 is so huge and everything, but the 4 is there's still a ton I haven't done. There's like all these distress signals. If you open up my Pip-Boy, I have abandoned so many poor people, and they're like, oh my God, they're in the most horrible situation in their lives. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I don't have time to deal with your own distress calls. There's so many fucking distress calls in my Pip-Boy. Like those people are probably dead by now.
And you posted about that new strategy guide that's coming out, right? So maybe it's time to start helping some of these people.
Yeah, there's a little news there. Thank you for bringing that up, Aaron. There's a new Game of the Year edition of the Fallout 4 game guide. And I got super excited, and I was reading about it, because I've been waiting, and I was like, oh my God, thank it's coming out. Because I wanted to wait to buy the game guide until all of Automatron and Far Harbor and Nuka World and all of the formulas in the workshop portions were explained and had all the formulas of how to make everything. I just wanted to get the nice, huge, thick, and all-inclusive edition of the guide with all the DLCs and everything. And then I was reading the sort of like fine print of the sales pitch, and I think it's just the normal guide that comes with an e-guide with all the DLC. And I'm like, what the fuck? That is so disappointing. Like,
they need a like a leather bound version with the full maps and
printed by like handwritten by hobbits and leather bound and in the Shire somewhere. That'd be
I keep getting ads from the Bethesda store for things like plushies and bobbleheads and stuff, and I mean those are all cool, but it's like to have a sort of tactile big user guide, like strategy guide with the like full, like something that's like quality that people are going to pay a lot of money for. I think there would be some demand for that. I would think there would have to be, especially if they had like beautiful maps of the Commonwealth that you could use. And maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I think there's a demand there for that.
No, I think especially with the maps and everything, that would be incredible. But that actually doesn't make me feel so bad, because I ended up buying just a junky used copy I found at my used video game store. Someone just happened to drop one off the day before, and I grabbed it and brought it home. And it's just like the normal Vault-Tec survival guide, the normal. So I have a copy of it, and now I don't feel bad at all for not waiting to purchase, because I super wanted to wait on have all the DLCs and everything included. But now that I know that they're not going to do that, then screw it.
Wait, the DLCs aren't in this new one? I thought they were.
They're in an e-guide. They're not. They're not in print version.
I didn't see that. So you're saying, I thought you meant that the e-guide was included, which I think it was with the original, but I didn't know that the DLCs are only in the e-guide.
Yeah, there's of course the e-guide,
Weak.
but as far as I could tell, and Shalene also looked at it too, and I was like, Shalene, can you look at this? Can you confirm? This is the impression I am getting from this, is that the DLC is on the e-guide only. It is not going to be in print form. And then I said, so
Yep.
what the fuck is the point?
Yep. Pass.
Pass.
Yeah.
Hard fucking
Ugh.
pass.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. So breaking ASA podcasting news. I'm not buying it.
Yeah. Well, I already have a couple copies. I have maps in my office here.
Nice.
I use it to
I'm a sucker for maps.
navigate things, and
You ever frame a map and hang it on your wall?
I haven't framed it.
Yeah.
The
Skyrim map is really pretty.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's a game I got to get into. I'm terrified though that I'm just going to be. It's going to completely sideline me.
Wait until you're done with Fallout 4. I know you're going to run it right into Fallout 5, so that doesn't give you a lot of time to play Skyrim in between, but wait until you're done with Fallout 4 for sure.
All right. I will do that.
Yeah. So while you're getting ready to play some Skyrim, you're going to need some paint to dry, but I found this really nice segment of you going to fetch some paint. Let's take a listen.
Western side of Fenway, all was quiet. No super mutants, no disturbances. The sight of the rusted gate over the park's entrance jogged a memory that I needed to pick up that green paint from Hardware Town for Abbott, maintainer of the wall. I had made him a promise that if I could find any, I'd bring it back for him. So I made a quick trip down the block and was in and out of Hardware Town in a matter of minutes. On our last visit, Nick and I had scrounged up some valuable solvents and electronics and had put them in a cache hidden among some rotting corpses dumped by raiders that had infested the store. The smell had apparently deterred anyone from discovering the stuff, so I got a shopping cart from the front, packed up the paint as well as the items in the cache, and wheeled it all to Diamond City. Originally, I had thought I'd be bringing these items to the Red Rocket for Sturgis, but he seemed to be making out just fine there, and I was probably going to need any caps I could get by turning them in at the Diamond City Science Center. My first stop was Abbott, though. He lit up when he saw me approaching with the cart full of gallons of paint.
Find that paint?
I teased him a bit, asking what he'd do if I could only find blue paint, and immediately felt terrible when I saw all the joy drain from his face. No, I said, and quickly pried open one of the cans. Abbott poured a little out into a tray, handed me a roller, and asked me if I'd do the honors.
Why don't you go ahead and paint the first stroke?
I dipped the roller in, and a beautiful deep green hue covered its surface. As I transferred the color to the wall and spread it out over a few square feet, I felt somewhat hypnotized by the sticky sound of the roller spreading the color up, then down, then slowly across. I hadn't realized how faded the wall had been. This new color being applied made it feel like something in the Commonwealth was new again. Within a minute or two, the roller had transferred all the paint, but I still stood there staring at the slightly textured pattern left by the new layer. I slowly turned around and handed the roller to Abbott, still in a weird daze, but he broke me out of it. Looks great, eh? Will it be enough? I asked.
Should be enough for a good coat or two.
He was pleased enough to offer me a nice bonus, but I turned it down and headed for the Science Center.
I just thought that was really nice. I like the paint and the the hypnosis thing.
It's nice to have these little light moments every once in a while in the devastating, terrible area of the Commonwealth with the synths roaming around and Brotherhood conquering everybody, and nice to have a little paint.
One of the reasons I pulled that clip actually was because many episodes before this, you had gone into that and mixed the paint and you stashed it. And I wanted to ask, how do you construct your side quest and when you're planning on doing that sort of stuff? Are you writing down, oh, I need to go back to that place and get that paint and give it back to that guy? Or did you actually do that a long time ago and you're just explaining it now? Or you actually went and did, like, how does your organization of working in that little side quest work?
I think I think I had carried, because I have that cheat, I think I had been carrying this paint for, oh God, I probably rescuing Nick Valentine. Oh no, I had Valentine at that point. Yeah, I had just been carrying it all over. So I don't think it was planned out. It was just, okay, I'm back at Diamond City and I have this like,
In my inventory,
yes.
there's this
Like,
miscellaneous quest hanging in my pit.
right. If I can tie up this loose end, I'll do that. Like there's one with what's her name? Bobby from
Bobby No Nose, yeah.
Yeah, like I had started the one where there's the Mirelurks, and I know she's waiting for me back at Diamond City. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that yet, but a lot of this I'm just kind of going on faith that at some point, if it needs to circle around, it'll circle around. And I'm trying to remember what I kept open in the story. Like you said, there was the part with Abbott, and I know that I think it's a fairly lengthy mission, right? A side quest with the whole Jack Abbott thing. Yeah. So I know I'm going to have to do that at some point. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to that.
Oh, the Abbott, the painting the wall thing.
I didn't mean. I meant Jack Abbott, the Abbott House. Is it Abbott House? Cabot House. I'm sorry.
Yes,
See,
there is a I don't want to. Yeah, of course, I'm not going to spoil anything, but yeah, it's there. There's a lot to that piece of property.
Yeah. So I know at some point I'm going to have to revisit some of these things, and I'm not really sure when that's going to happen. I mean, it would really suck if it's going to take me a year to get to some of this stuff, but
no, yeah. But so you're just sort of, do you write stuff? Do you have a giant notebook? Do you make mental notes? Do you have a computer document? How are you organized? What is your actual writing process?
It's pretty much just on the website like that. It's cataloging as much as I can. The story, all the writing's actually on the website at mindfog.com. And so the writing is there. And if I need to go back and view things, I've written not that much yet. I mean, I think once I finish this Covenant one, I think I'll have about 6 hours of audio. And that will only be 23 episodes. So I generally know what's open and what's not. I should probably be keeping better track, especially since it's been a long time now from some of these things. But yeah, I should probably go back and just through everything and just know what quests are open to know to close them at some point. But that's just pretty. I don't keep much track of that though.
Of course, like any Bethesda game, I will just give you fair warning. Leaving some quests dangling is
they get closed up.
Temptation for them to break.
Yeah. That's
but I'm sure you're used to that sort of thing. So, and you could write it into. I'm sure you are creative enough that you would write it into the character somehow anyway. You know what I mean? Like you would figure out a way if you busted something, or you would just ignore it altogether if you broke it. You know what
I went back and all the people at Cabot House were dead, so I don't know what happened, and that's the end of that one.
They just fucking Zorp got him.
Yeah, what happened? Yeah. Flying Spaghetti Monster came down and smite them all. Smote them.
Yes, good. So let's take another clip here. This one is entitled Warranty Date. I believe this is a Nick Valentine sort of nice audio clip.
Since this interface was designed to work with Institute technology, we'd get into Kellogg's brain by substituting this bit of the medial temporal lobe for the same spot on a functional synth, which obviously meant Valentine. Is that dangerous? I asked, perhaps naively.
We're talking about wiring something to his brain.
Don't worry about me, Amari. I'm well past the warranty date anyway.
Amari then explained that Nick was going to merely act as a host. His brain would have to decode the information from Kellogg's hippocampus, but a secondary consciousness would have to be there to witness the memories as they were unlocked. We'd both be getting in the memory loungers together, and Amari would help steer my way through those memories. It wouldn't be risky for me, but it might be disorienting because only a very small part of the brain would be available.
Let's do this.
Let's do this, said Nick.
I just really like that you were saying medical stuff? Where'd you get all is that information just sort of in the dialogue somewhere there?
I think it was, yeah. Yeah, watching the videos is very helpful when I go back, especially when it comes to the dialogue.
Yes.
Some of it I don't think it was. Some of it I don't think it was. I think the bit about being an observer, I sort of had to, because I started thinking about, well, if people go to the memory den, I think the whole point is to experience things as themselves. So this was either in the game or it wasn't. I wish I could remember. I don't think it was. But I was thinking about, well, if it's not me, then I have to be an observer. So I sort of wrote that in as being an observer instead. But she may have said, Dr. Amari may have mentioned something about that, and maybe I embellished it, or maybe I just did completely steal it. I don't really know. But yeah.
There's another quest that you could get at some point if you go to a certain place that would bring you back to this location again, and I'm confusing the two interactions between those two quests, so I forget which is possible at this point, so I can't even tell you.
Yeah. that was a fun I like the memory den. It was interesting.
It's a good little place there.
Yeah.
So Aaron, before we move on to our last clip of the evening, I'll ask you to hop off and on again.
All right. Okay. Hello.
All right. And before we get into our last clip, you mentioned that you like to watch the video, and there were a couple of poignant moments in the show where your character is looking out over the eastern horizon and seeing the sun coming up over the crest of the hills and coming through the trees and being filtered and breaking into different rays and touching the grass and different, you just have these really nice poetic sort of descriptive terms. Is that literally you watching your video screen and being like, oh, that sun is actually kind of pretty, let's observe that sun, or where does that come from?
Oh, I think we've all sort of had the experience in this game of these moments where you see some place for the first time, or you're somewhere and you're like, wow, well, that's really cool. And you stop and you look for a second, and then you just kind of forget about it and you go on. And one of my goals for this whole project was to sort of take those moments that we all stop and we're like, wow, the developers really did a great job here. I mean, that's kind of what's in the back of my head. I'm sure it is in a lot of people, but like those moments that are kind of tied in with that are just like, what, I want to remember this because this is a really cool section of the game. And trying to describe some of that and make it part of the story. There's a lot of games, I'm sure Skyrim, when you play some of that, I've seen some of the Let's Plays and things, and you're just like, oh my God, this is just one of the most beautiful things I've seen on screen. And it's sort of a goal to keep doing that. I don't think I've done as much of it lately. And again, I can't thank you guys enough for having me on here and playing some of these clips again, because it sort of reminds me and sort of refocuses me on some of the things I need to make sure that I keep doing throughout this whole process. So thank you.
Oh, no, it's wonderful for you to come on. I'm so excited. Like, we can't have you on our normal show all the time because we talk about Fallout 4. Like, of course, right. We've done everything. We talk about it in passing. We've dropped all spoilers for the game. Was where we did that. Mm-hmm. We might have held like end of the main storyline spoilers for almost we couldn't have done it for a year, but I want to say a year.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but we did it for a long time out of respect for people who still hadn't finished the end game. Yeah. But then we started doing roundtables about it and stuff like that. So
sure,
you have to spoiler it at some point there. But now that we're doing New Vegas roundtable, if you, I know that this is a big project and it's a wonderful show, and it's super time consuming to produce. But if you have time to do any sort of New Vegas play along, you are more than welcome to come on the show anytime you like to and spoil New Vegas for me. I really don't.
Well, I will try. I would love to do that. I will try not to do any spoilers if I do that. Yeah, there's this project should be taking a lot less time than it is. I have no, like I said, I have no excuses. So anything else I get involved with shouldn't be taking away from this.
Don't be ashamed. One of the great parts of the show is I feel like a little some of the other story-based continual narrative podcasts out there get a little overzealous and have like hour and 20-minute length episodes. Yours are very digestible and are great at having a beginning, middle, and end to each episode. You're very conscious about having a story told in completion, but always being aware of the overarching story altogether, all at once. Yeah, you're doing some very good storytelling.
Thank you.
Here.
Yeah, it's Bethesda has done. I mean, I can't claim credit for that. The quests and things like that are very conducive to putting something in this format. So, I borrow from them as far as telling the story. So a lot of it is dependent on that. So
I think this might have been a question I asked earlier, but I wanted to hit it one more time. Are your characters' complaints in the show actually representative of your problems with the game?
It's anyone who's on. You mean as far as the story goes, as far as the world
or mechanics, or I think you've made the observation of your character like, okay, there are so many people out here who want me to do that. I need to get back to rescuing my son, but there are 50 people who I've got promised that I'm going to go help them do stuff now,
Yeah. This came up.
Corvega are still waiting.
Yeah. Yeah, I did send Strong to help them, I think. So that was, I got out of that one. There's one that I got out of.
I'm sorry, Strong is just going to go eat those poor people.
Yeah, maybe it was not a good idea. I don't really know what happened there. So all I know is that 10 Pines Bluff isn't bothering me about them anymore. So
because they're dead. Strong.
Yes, he took care of them. That's funny. This came up in another game. There's a game that I really love. It's called The Long Dark. And they just came out with a story mode, and it started as a sandbox for a long time, and you basically have to stay alive through doing all these things, and they sort of incorporated the sandbox into the story mode, but it's difficult because they're trying to establish this narrative of you're looking for your friend, and meanwhile you have to do all these side quests on the side. So I think this is a very common thing, and it didn't bother me in The Long Dark, and it has bothered a lot of people in The Long Dark. I think the reason it didn't bother me is because it really doesn't bother me as far as gameplay goes in Fallout. As a narrative device, it's kind of difficult, but it's a game, and no, I definitely don't have that complaint. It's kind of funny. It's kind of a funny joke that everybody sort of is in on. But no, I don't really have any complaints. I had some minor complaints when the game first came out with sort of the clunkiness of the UI, but I think a lot of that was solved. And I think actually it might have been you that suggested, passed along a little hint that I, for some reason, had totally missed, that the E key is the same as the Enter key. So here I was doing my settlements, and I'm doing, trash this and go to this and trash this and enter and trash this and enter and trash this and enter. And I was like, oh my God, why do I have to go all over the keyboard for this? And then I think it was you who told Michael, can you just tell Aaron all he has to do is go one key over to the E? And so that was really the only complaint I had. But
I play totally console. I have no idea about it.
Okay. I'm not sure who it was then.
I'm not sure who that would have been, but yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I don't generally, I don't really have any complaints with. The only thing I would say is I really was hoping that the radio again would sort of keep track of your progress and sort of comment on these whatever it was, the actions that you were doing, or that the characters.
Well,
I think that was one of the best things And if the NPCs could keep track of, oh, I heard you did this, you know, I think there's a couple places in Fallout 4 that it does that. That was a huge thing that I think adds to immersion, that if they incorporated that a little better, that's the only real game complaint I have.
That was something I was going to bring up to you earlier, because you sort of brushed upon that topic when you're talking about Three Dog from Fallout 3, that he, you know, makes the comment, he plays the chorus of, you know, of commenting on the greater actions of the protagonist in the game. And then that made me think in the back of my head, what are you listening to on your Pip-Boy? Because you're recording the audio of the game at all times for your video so that you can have a recording. Do you ever listen to the radio stations on your Pip-Boy?
I don't. And it's been a huge loss for me, because
and you're missing the exact role of Three Dog is this guy named Travis, who runs a radio station called Diamond City Radio that you should be listening to. This is already in your Pip-Boy. This is not a spoiler.
Yes.
Like,
I did a little bit of gameplay with Travis, listening to that, and I actually finished the Travis quest and got him to.
Oh, nice.
I forget what her name is at. In Diamond City. Yeah, I got them together or whatever. I decided for whatever reason not to include that in MindFog. I don't know why. I think that's the only major sort of quest that I did that I made a conscious decision not to put in. Yeah.
Travis, he is like Handsome Dan from the Covenant quest, is one of those followers that if you go and take him to the brewery and meet him there to go do his quest, he will follow you inside. But if you don't go rescue the person there at the brewery, he will just follow you around forever. And, which is funny, you can turn on the radio at Diamond City Radio, and it's like he is also broadcasting from the radio station at the same time that he's following you. So he will speak to you the game and through your Pip-Boy at the same time. It's a funny little
maybe he recorded a few days of, you know, ahead.
I thought that was really funny.
That is interesting. Yeah, no, I didn't know that. But yeah, I noticed that he changed. But does he comment on what you're doing, or?
Yes. Each time that you do anything, like there are certain side quests that if you find certain aquatic vessels, he will, and you help the people in those things, he will then say, oh, and I hear our friend, like, especially after you've done his quest, he will then refer to you specifically as our friend. So he's like, and our friend out in the Commonwealth has helped there was something spotted out on the horizon, and he went in and helped and saved the day. And
oh, that sucks. I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss that whole thing throughout this whole game. I'm going to have to play it again when I'm done.
That's what I was just about to say. You're going to have to hurry up and step on it, because if you're going to get 2 playthroughs through before Fallout 5 drops.
Oh my God. Pressure's on.
2025 is only
yeah, right.
Like 8 years away. So Fallout 5, give me right now, we're going to call it. Give me a year right now. Fallout 5.
I'm going to say 2021.
No way.
Too early?
Only if they
Is it doing Skyrim stuff?
If they give the license to a different company like they did with the City.
I think that could happen. I think it could happen.
It would already be in development if it were going to happen. If it was going to be released in 2021, right?
Well, so when did New Vegas come out? Was that 2009?
Maybe.
Okay, and that was sent over to So they did 2007 was Fallout 3. Is that right? Was it 2006?
Was it 7 to 9? I don't remember. I really don't remember.
And then and then they started development. I don't know, man. 2021, 22. You really think it's going to be 25?
That's wishful thinking. You can also count the years between Elder Scrolls games as an indication about how fast as well. But I also hear that they have hired on a bunch of people for new projects too. So they've got 2 other games in production too. Does that help or hinder the production of their 2 classic?
I think Fallout 4, they made more money on this than they ever thought they were going to make between this and
maybe with the initial release, but I think I've just recently purchased my 5th fucking version of Skyrim, so I know that they've made a pretty fucking penny on Skyrim as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when it comes out on Switch here, like around Christmas time or whenever they're going to announce that, I will buy my 6th version of Skyrim too.
So this whole Creation Club stuff, is that Steam only, or is that on all of?
You, sir, will have to refer that question to our friend Ray, who has all the research done about the Creation Kit. He got all this stuff downloaded. He went and played with it. He's got some experience with it and is going to give us a firsthand report. But he is currently doing sound at Dragon Con in Atlanta. He is working the festival, so he is going to report back to us I think next week all about this Creation Kit stuff, because I have zero clue. Again, I play on console, so I really don't even know what this is all about, and I hope it doesn't eliminate my free access to mods. If it does that, I can piss right off. So
it's because I was wondering if Bethesda's making any money off of that, if that was part of their cut.
Anyone is, Bethesda knows how to. So
yeah, I don't know. So what are you saying? What year? You're saying 2025?
That is my non-optimistic, realistic as fuck call.
That's a long time.
It's a 10-year gap, because when did Fallout 4 release? Was 10 years, right? It was
you're right. I think so.
So when was Fallout?
No, it was
2008. So no, it was 8
years. 8 years. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you 2023. How about that? The optimistic view of 2023. We'll meet halfway in between of our 21 and.
All right, we're nailing it right here. 2023.
2023. We're making the prediction here.
All right, got it. I'm down.
Before we play the last clip, and I can cut this out of the show if this is offensive to you in any way. You're a very knowledgeable guy, and I'm glad to gotten to know you on the internet over the last few months here. Has anyone mentioned to you your voice? And maybe I shouldn't even mention this. I can totally cut this out if you want me to. Has anyone? Because I don't want this to make an impression on people's voices, and then they hear this and only this, and they can't get this out of their head when they're listening to your show.
Okay.
So again, please let me know if you need me to cut this out. Has anyone ever told you sound like John Hodgman?
I don't know who John Hodgman is.
Okay, he used to do Mac commercials with Jeremy Long. Who he was the PC. Jeremy Long was the Mac, and he was the PC.
Oh.
I don't know. He has and he had a podcast.
Glasses and
and he has a podcast, and he's hilarious. He's a very, very funny comedian, and he has audiobooks. He's wonderfully hilarious. He made some appearances on NPR radio, I believe, on This American Life with Ira Glass a lot. That's where I started knowing him, and he is an extremely funny comedian. And I don't know if it's because I find you also pretty dry and funny in your presentation of stuff as well, or if your voice actually sounds like him. So I was just curious if anyone had actually
no one has ever actually commented anything on my voice, so I'm gonna have to go listen to him now and see what he sounds like. So
yeah, but I think pardon me if it's offensive, and
no, I wouldn't be offended by that.
Go listen to John Hodgman right after we're done recording.
Okay.
Oh man, fuck that guy. Then I can clip all this out.
No, I'm not. I don't get like that. So whatever, I'm fine with whatever.
No, but I really enjoy.
I should go listen.
Yeah, I really enjoy your presentation in that. So
thank you.
So that was the last thing I had. Do you have any other comments or anything like that you'd like to mention before we get into our last segment of the show?
I don't think so, other than to say thank you again so much for giving me a chance to come on here. And it's great what you guys are doing. And thank you for doing it. And I'm looking forward to listening to the New Vegas stuff. Absolutely.
This is a very nice audio clip here. And I wanted to share this one because I feel like there's no way you could have put this together without have lived in or near or had some sort of experience in the neighborhood that they're discussing here. Do you have any just sort of initial thoughts or memories when I say the word Scully Square?
Scully Square. The reason why I was interested in this.
Hop off and back on and say Scully Square.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, go. Scully Square.
Scully Square, I always, when I found out where Scully Square actually was, I wasn't really familiar with it as Scully Square. I was familiar with it as Government Center. And I always loved Government Center just because it just never seemed to fit in with everything else that was in Boston, that whole area. Because if you go to Boston, there's this whole section between like Faneuil Hall and the Back Bay that just looks very 70s, and just kind of like there's lots of concrete, and then there's these big open brick covered spaces, and then this sort of modern entrance to I don't know if it's modern entrance to the subway, the T. And I was always kind of fascinated at how this little section of government buildings was plopped in between these very old and beautiful sort of brownstones up on Beacon Hill, and then further down below was like Faneuil Hall. So when I got into the game, and I was up on top of one of the towers and looking down on Scully Square, I had a hard time finding Good Neighbor. So when I was looking down, I sort of recognized this area a little bit. And so I did a little bit more research actually online to find out what the history of Scully Square was. And then I thought it'd be interesting to come up with some sort of history about how it may have changed its name again later on, like in the late 2022. I don't even remember now what I did in the story, but how it would be like this whole sort of Renaissance thing, maybe by political leaders changing the name, just saying, oh, we're going to celebrate this, times are tough, but we're going to make this spectacle out of renaming this area again or something like that. I figured it was something like, the politicians would do or something. So that's kind of where that all came from.
But this was not based on real events? No.
The early parts were, that's actual history. It was part of the Underground Railroad. They did hide slaves on their way up to Canada. It was changed from Scully Square to Government Center. I believe that there was a lot of arm twisting to try and get the certain businesses out of the area that they wanted to sort of remake it. There was a lot of that in Boston over the years, even later on.
This is all covered in the clip I'm about to play. So this actually was based on true events. Nice.
That part was obviously the stuff that hasn't happened yet. Wasn't, but yes.
Awesome. So let's move right into it.
In any case, Good Neighbor seemed to be in the middle of all the goings-on, but at least temporarily sheltered from it as well. As I made my way toward the front gate, the large Scully Square sign above the memory den reminded me that Boston's political leaders had always played tug-of-war with this area. I couldn't recall all the specifics, but I did know that since the 1800s, these few city blocks had been a cultural and economic focal point of the city. In the early 1800s, one of the first anti-slavery newspapers in the country had been printed right here, almost 2 decades before the American Civil War. And some of these buildings had been part of the Underground Railroad. I was sure many of them still had undiscovered hiding spots where slaves had been given sanctuary on their way north. At another point in time, a Christian sect that believed the world was going to end in 1844 had taken root here. When that year came and went and everyone was still alive, the sect disbanded, and eventually a kind of secular rebellion took hold, with vaudeville, Shakespearean, and even burlesque shows moving into the square. A century later, after the Second World War, America's restored faith in itself led to the promotion of many projects across the United States that might have been best reconsidered. Unbridled enthusiasm and a nationwide economic recovery led to massive construction, sometimes without the thought of preserving what once was. For Scully Square, that meant removing the seediest elements and redeveloping the entire area. The local fight against what was viewed as government intrusion into a private sector of the city lasted years. But in the end, a large federal cash grant and payouts to building owners convinced the last remaining holdouts that razing most of the remaining buildings
and creating a sprawling new government complex, what became Government Center, was the way forward. The modern architecture didn't age well, though. By the mid-2070s, the specific architectural style used at Government Center betrayed the date of its creation. And with the United States in the grips of a costly war on the Chinese mainland, local politicians were looking for cheap victories to ramp up general constituent enthusiasm and keep consumer sentiment high. The renaming of Government Center back to Scully Square was one of those hallowed deeds. History wasn't really my strong suit, but I didn't have much of a fondness for politicians, so I always seemed to remember when they pulled purely symbolic shit like that, which led me to thinking about the Brotherhood of Steel.
I wanted to throw that burn in there about the symbolic shit like that. It was maybe Brotherhood of Steel. It's just an ongoing joke. I know you don't, you haven't been able to listen to our show in depth, but I have this tongue-in-cheek sort of joke going that I really hate the Brotherhood of Steel, and so I make fun of them and put them down at every turn because everyone out there loves the Brotherhood of Steel.
Yeah,
so it's just sort of like my tongue-in-cheek joke on the show where I hate the Brotherhood of Steel. So I thought it was funny that you dropped a Brotherhood of Steel sort of burn in there. So I thought,
yeah, it's funny. I don't think when I was writing it, I meant it as such a burn, but yeah, it turned out to be that way. And
which reminded me of those inept assholes, the Brotherhood.
Right. It's funny. I don't want to, lest I piss anybody off. I'm sitting in my office as a huge Brotherhood of Steel flag in the back, so I don't want anybody to think I'm anti-Brotherhood or anything. So
that is one of the things on our show, and I have to look into the progress of what is happening. But we're doing this sort of word identification game on the show, where if our listener, we notify them when we're playing this game on the episode. We call it Capture the Flag. But if we all say this predetermined word on the show, and all the hosts of the show, all the four of us have told each other we're going to say this word. Each of us are going to say this word during the show. And if one of the listeners picks up on that and says, hey, is the secret word this? Then they will get the flag for a month, and they get to deface it and write their name on it and where they live and do it.
Awesome
and stuff. And it's this Brotherhood of Steel flag that our good friend and listener of the show, Michelle from Canada, sent to us. So
what a great idea!
I just thought that was a fun little idea. So that is one of the things that we try to get going on the show. We haven't gotten it in full swing yet.
Yeah,
that is the plan, at least.
That is fantastic. That's really awesome.
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts here as I end on this last segment that we listened to, the Christian sect of 1844. What was that all about?
That was just a weird thing that I found dug, deep in the history of the area. That this sort of little uprising had come, and I guess they had commandeered a lot of the buildings. They had moved in, and this was their little. This was their place, and when they predicted the end of the world and it didn't happen, I don't know how quickly things turned around, but obviously everything sort of fell to shit because all the brothels moved in, or I don't know, brothels, but the burlesque shows and all the kind of seedy, red light district kind of stuff moved in. So I don't know how long it took for that to happen, and there must have been some embarrassing conversations, but what happened.
I love how you incorporate all of this into the show. It's a little bit of history, a little bit of theater, a little bit of news.
I didn't know if people would be interested in that because, it's not really Fallout. Well,
it's an embellishment upon a story that revolves in I think you're doing a good job of staying, I'm not a lore hound. There's people out there who that didn't happen.
Right.
And I don't care. This is a role that you're playing within a universe. And I think you're doing a wonderful job of representing the possibilities of what could happen to a person under these circumstances in this universe. So I think that you're doing a wonderful job, and you should just keep plowing through exactly the way.
All right. Thank you.
Another observation here with this last segment, you mentioned the anti-slavery and Underground Railroad and stuff. That is your perfect end to have your character start exploring, go explore the anti-slavery aspects of that Good Neighbor neighborhood.
Okay.
Have you done any of that yet?
I haven't. Where is that related to anything that I have hooked into already, or is that something
Yes.
completely
Your character, you were just wanting to know a direction to go, and it will help you in your decision of which faction you would like to go in between the Minutemen or the Railroad. So you can head that direction, and that will help you with that decision, or just keep talking with Preston. And actually, that brings up something else I wanted to mention about Preston. A lot of people complain about him, and I'm sure if you've just been online at all as someone in the Fallout world, you've seen the memes hating on Preston online, right? I would just like to mention again, and the people who've heard the show before are rolling their eyes because they know what I'm about to say, because I've said this 100 times on the show. And I love followers. No one else loves followers, of course. So they all know that as well. But take Preston with you as a follower if you're going to do a Minuteman playthrough. I know what you're about to say, but the annoying part of Preston is that you have to keep going back and forth, and he sends you out and doing all this shit. If he is right by your side, you just turn to him and say, okay, now, blah, 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 and you're done with it. You don't have to do all this extra traveling, going back and forth. All this like, this place needs help. We need to go over here now. That was annoying because you had to do all this extra backtracking and traveling. If he's by your side, it eliminates 90% of what's annoying about him, and he's actually fairly pleasant.
So, number one, I feel towards Preston sort of jokingly how you feel towards the Brotherhood of Steel. Okay. It's a kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. He doesn't really, he doesn't really annoy me that much, but and it's at all really. I mean, it's part of a game mechanic. I understand that. I'm fine with it. That said, what is there a quest that you know of that you can tell me that I should be taking him with me, that you can think of specifically that will advance a certain part of the story, or are you just saying in general?
He will not just stick around Sanctuary.
Yeah.
The rest of the game, like you're about to, whether you will like it or not, Mister, he is going to, you're going to run into him elsewhere. So I will not spoil that for you.
Okay.
But he is going to be
it's going to happen.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah, you're gonna see him out and about, regardless of whether.
Good. It'll be nice seeing him somewhere other than stuck under that footbridge on the way into Sanctuary Hills. That's all I can say.
And I like your description. You ran past the dead body and the crowbar sticking out of the dead dog at the foot of the bridge. Like, in how many times you had to pass. Yeah. Exact scene. I just thought that was a nice observation, and like sort of like I could tell you were kind of like making the roll your eyes gesture as you were recording that. Yes, like, oh, this is what it
certainly was.
So Good Neighbor, yeah, okay, yeah. I think we've covered just about everything, and one last thing: the Skulky Square sign. Does that really, or the Scully Square sign? Does that really exist on the outside of Good Neighbor? There, do they actually have that identification mark, or is that something you
in Boston?
No, in the game.
Oh, in the game? I think it's in the game.
On the outside of Good Neighbor before you.
No, I think it's above the memory den.
Oh, it's okay. It says Scully Square.
I think it says. Unless I imagined it, but I think so.
No, but see, that's something I see. I'm not familiar with the area, so that's not something that would like. Of course, when you saw it, I'm sure you're like, "Oh, awesome! That's amazing."
Yeah, but not really
because actually you actually said earlier that you weren't terribly familiar with that.
I knew it as Government Center, so learning about, I was like, well, okay, this is called Scully Square, and I had heard of Scully Square. I didn't know what it was. So when I did some research online, this whole fascinating backdrop sort of opened up.
Yeah, so you had known enough that Scully Square means something. See, I looked at it and I was just like a stupid random thing. But of course, every follower, their names are a reference to something. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at all the I can't give you any specific references now, but like I'm sure all the different followers have like they're not just named what they're named randomly.
Yeah,
All of these things are references to something in some fashion,
like historical references.
or yeah.
It's funny because I've sort of, I think I've read that and it just never, these things, like I said, I kind of blow through things too, and I have a terrible memory. So these things don't really always register with me. People probably think I'm a little slow when it comes to those things, but that's interesting. I'm gonna have to pay more attention to that.
Oh no, you don't. You can stay in my group and just keep blowing right on through.
All right. There we go.
No, but you can't because you have to keep producing your show.
All right.
You can pick up the pace just a little bit, but
yeah, I can do that. I can definitely do that.
That's awesome. So, Aaron, I'd like to just again extend your welcome to the show. Anytime that you would like to come on, because we're about to get into roundtable for New Vegas. So anytime you would like to, please hop on the show. Just give us a heads up whenever you're available. You're welcome to come on. And if you're doing a play along with New Vegas, which I doubt you have the time to do all of that, but if you just like to come on sometime, we'd love to have you on anytime. And you can, if you have a new episode of MindFog coming out, that would be a good time to hop on. You can give a little promotion, and if you'd like
I would love to do that. That would be awesome. I'll definitely be in touch.
That's great. And again, I can't commend you highly enough about the wonderful work and audio production and everything that you put into your show. It is very nice, and it stinks that you can't be on our show of the last couple of years, but hopefully at least during this window of New Vegas we can collaborate on some stuff here.
Absolutely. That'd be fantastic.
All right, sir.
Thanks again for having me. Absolutely. I had so much fun. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will see you in the wasteland.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thank you for downloading this episode of the Fallout Feed Roundtable. If you are interested in doing a play-along character with us, the show can be contacted by emailing falloutroundtable@gmail.com. For the roundtable schedule, our Amazon link, and all other show information, please head on over to asapodcasting.com, where you will find the Fallout Feed, a Skyrimatic podcast, our YouTube channel, the Chatterbox, as well as other content. Once again, thank you for downloading, and we'll see you in the wasteland.